everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Won't Shut Up and Skate podcast.
That's what you get for letting you start off the thing here, Mr. Carjack. Just kidding here on a Sunday morning. It's October 29th, and welcome to episode 6, the 6-pack episode. Not really, but it's good that we're in our 6th episode. Recording here on October 29th, and of course, we're a couple of episodes ahead, so we'll be glad to talk about things that already happened. Because that's what we do sometimes. Good stuff.
Are we going to make any predictions about things that are yet to happen?
I don't know.
That will have happened by the time?
This one's going to be a... So strap on whatever seatbelt or whatever you need to strap into this episode, because it is going to be a very long, very good, very detailed episode.
Would you call it a banger?
I called it a banger. Coming up with a banger and a hanger in just a couple of weeks, which by the time you listen to this, you probably already happened, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But I was thinking about this, Carjack. We're not historians, and we're not necessarily good at our management here in the first episodes, because we've still kind of stuck around in the 70s pre-1980, as you know.
Yeah.
But we are also mixing in some interviews. So the other cool thing is if you're watching us through that camera, then apparently you're seeing us for the second time, potentially, maybe the first or second.
I'll go ahead and apologize now.
On YouTube. Yeah. So we're set up for that. We'll figure out a studio. We'll figure out something like that here in the upcoming episodes. So, welcome to Won't Shut Up and Skate, the Texas podcast focused on Texas history and all things related to Texas. A lot of good things going on. Carjack, yesterday, the 28th, considered the Halloween weekend here in Austin. Saw you for a few minutes.
As opposed to the Halloween weekend in other cities?
That's true. As opposed to Halloween, which actually is on Tuesday, is what I kind of meant. So there you go.
Yeah, there was a Day of the Dead celebration someplace yesterday. I'm like, that's next month.
Next month?
I mean, it's Wednesday,
early,
but it's next month.
You know, it's all the rage. But yeah, yesterday I saw you at Breakaway Records, and there was a little show with Sugar Shack.
Sugar Shack!
And there was quite a few OG heads there, especially from Houston. Of course, with Sugar Shack, John Gibson, as you know, was there playing bass, and Tim Kerr, and you, and Mandy Maloney, and anybody. I could name 1,000 names.
It was nice that a few people brought their kids with them, because otherwise the average age in that room was over 50.
Exactly. And what was cool is that it was inside of a record shop, this Breakaway record shop, and so they decided to move the band playing back to like 12 or 1. The reason was...
At 1:30, I had to leave, and they hadn't even gotten close to starting.
That's true. They ended up playing around 2 or so.
That's what happens when you hire skateboarders.
They did it early because they wanted to go to the parlor and do more drinking, which is...
I can get behind that.
Yeah. But hey, to circle back, remember that couple episodes ago when I told you Gibson gave me a call about Jeff Ament that was in town and all that?
Yeah.
And then I never ended up hearing from him. I inquired about that question when I saw him yesterday, and he was like, oh, yeah, I was sitting there and Ament sends in, and he says, we got these tickets and see you there, and all of a sudden, and then Johnny looks up and he's like, oh, that's the date in Dallas. So he had to take a red eye or whatever, a quick trip up to Dallas, and ended up doing that. And then they came through Austin and never called me, and that's okay. So, but the good news is we'll probably be talking to him in a couple of weeks at the Banger.
All right.
The Banger. So at this point, if this episode plays after the Banger, we want to give Scott a huge shout out for how amazing that event was. He's going to give us some space at his Houston Vert ramp to set up in one of the containers behind the ramp and interview some of the crowd that's coming through. And so we're going to get some names, and one of those featured will be Johnny, hopefully. So that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be a lot of fun. Speaking of some cool stuff, as also just kind of catching up. Don't worry, we'll get to this beautiful person sitting here right quietly here in a minute. Frank Gardner
Texican skateboards.
Texican skateboards. You're the person you're most jealous right now because he's traveling all over the place, finding places to skate.
I'll admit it.
A message yesterday, which included photos. He found the system.
That's
the ditch system.
It's
outside of Midland, Odessa, where that contest was that I mentioned in episode 3, I think it was.
I need to know, is it a go?
It's a go. He says the cements that...
The what? The what now?
The concrete... Damn it. We did a whole thing on this. The concrete is super rough. And I'm like, well, yeah, I skated back in the 80s. And, of course, we were riding... The wheels back then were, not as good materials. They were probably softer wheels for ditches, whatever. But he sent about 6 or 7 pictures of it. We'll try to get those up.
Now, sometimes the concrete in an old ditch gets rough because the cement degrades out of the concrete.
Oh, so technically aggregate. Okay, so more lessons by Carjack. Another cool thing is Mike Money with Cockfight, one of our bro sponsors, sent us a floppy disk.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the floppy disk.
As soon as we can unearth a floppy disk drive to decipher it with, we'll find out what's on it.
Well, I've already got a team setting up the dial-up as we speak.
You mean the video is in the computer?
So we've got, what's cool is there's a couple of companies, Legacy Box, not giving them a shout out, but anyway, they do a thing where you can send in some tapes for, $40, or you can do $100 depending on how many you send in, and they will redigitize it, send it to you so that you can utilize that in a better modern digital format. And this is a floppy disk of a contest at Cecil's Ramp in Corpus Christi. And when I say the contest, it's the one that includes Jeff, Johnny, Neil Blender, and tons of names. Were you there?
I was there.
And Boog was there. William Cram Booger was there. So that's going to be cool. So when you get to anytime you've got something like that and you can't take care of it, we'll do our best, but it does cost some change for us to put that together. But we're going to have some amazing photos. I also sent a mini DV tape of one of the Skate Park of Austin 69 bowl contests. So I've got 2 things that's going to take about 2 months, and we'll get to it. But it's got some cool stuff. So people are sending some stuff in, and we're doing some stuff with that.
Dude, I have some stuff that we should send those guys.
Well,
I've got a lot of media that needs to be translated into modern terms.
Well, I tell you what, we appreciate everybody out there and we'll talk a lot about the support that we've been getting from our sponsors and our buds and our bros. And, we appreciate that very much. And if you want to help us, because this is all coming out of our pocket, and you want to pitch in and help us, you like what we're doing, then we've got a Venmo that you can send us some change, and we'll give you some shout out and some love, and it will help us get some of these things unearthed and digitized, because this contest, these are photos from Big Ryan, by the way, Ryan Smith, and so these should be pretty amazing because he's been taking photos of pools and contests for...
Yeah, I've gotten to see a couple of his albums, and they are impressive.
So we've got that. So you can hit us up on our Venmo. That's Won't Shut Up and Skate. We've also got a Gmail, won'tshutupanskate@gmail.com. I'm not getting enough emails, so send us an email. Let us know what's going on. We've also got the Facebook archives page. It's the Won't Shut Up and Skate Texas Archives. And as of now, adding also YouTube, we are on all forms of podcasts. That includes Apple, which took about 2 months.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. It takes a little bit of time to make that happen. So, all right. Love and shout out to Jeff Newton, always, for what he's done for Texas skateboarding and also the inspiration for our name, Won't Shut Up and Skate. Thank you to the big boys, always allowing us to use their music on our intros and our exits. Eureka Street Creative and our producer, John Miller, who go to the Wood Skateboard podcast, and he just interviewed Andy Escalante from the Lizard DIY. It was fantastic.
Yes, it was. And Andy's doing great work out there, and it was good to see, good to hear that interview.
Yeah, exactly. And also a big shout out and love to Brett Stiles, our graphic artist. You can check him out on Instagram. We can send you his link. If you need some stuff done, please let me know and I'll get you in contact with him. He does all of our graphics logos, and I've got some cool new stickers and graphics coming out here pretty soon. So before we dig into the meat of this, I also want to give some love real quick and shouts to our sponsors have been coming in, Carrie. We're pretty stoked. We're getting a lot of love. We're getting a lot of shout outs.
I noticed.
Yeah, look behind us. We've got a plethora of boards and things that people are sending in, and we definitely want to give some love out to all of that. We are now, as of episode 6, over 1,000 Instagram. It's still not, that much, but it's a lot.
Taylor Swift, look out.
Taylor Swift, hers has tripled in the last few weeks with that whole football thing going on. So a couple of things I thought would be good. Real quick, I should do this. I'm going to do it officially again more, but we are joined here today by William Cram. You might know him as Boog, B-O-O-G. I saw a reference of Boog, B-U-G, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is Booger sitting us. He came in from Galveston. He is super important to what we're talking about, and he's got more good Texas shit that we're going to go through here today. So he's sitting here. If you were wondering, we appreciate him coming in.
Hey, thanks, guys. Carrie, thanks for inviting me into your home.
Thanks for coming out today.
For keeping it straight.
Trying to. I don't know. Again, we're trying to do this. I kept mentioning in the previous episodes what we're doing, what we're trying to do here, and I think we've said that enough, but hopefully we're doing a good job for Texas history, and that's what it's all about. Before we get into the super meat of everything, like I said, I want to give some love. This episode is brought to you by our pro-level sponsors, and our pro-level sponsors are Southside Skate Shop and Skate Park. I'm sporting one of their shirts that Big O sent us.
And that's a really cool design,
right
too.
In the team, right, we'll post something so you can see a little bit. It's a spider web. It's right in time for the Halloween and all that good stuff.
A heart-shaped spider web.
A heart-shaped spider
Big O's
web.
a great guy.
Big O's a great guy. They've been running that park. They do the yearly
DIY in Galveston.
They do the DIY in Galveston, but they also do the
Old Man Bowl Jam.
The Old Man Bowl Jam, but the benefit, Make-A-Wish.
The Make-A-Wish.
Make-A-Wish. So they do that. And
is that still going?
No longer. It's been down for a number of years.
That's
now.
what I thought. I thought I went to the last one.
No. Yeah, but he does a lot of great stuff. They've got a Grom series coming up in December. Hopefully you've heard this. Groms 2, which is basically a contest series with all the Groms. Little kids. It's rad. Super good.
Wait, so in the spirit of the Old Man Bowl Jam, should we go to the Grom contest and just skate all over the course when it's supposed to be their time?
Yes. No, when they're skating in between, we'll drop in and we'll just do fakie rock disaster. Fakie rock disaster. Fakie rock disaster.
Get out of the way, kid.
Get out of the way. Also, pro-level sponsor, Hanger Skate Shop in Katy. They're in the Katy Mills Business Park, I found out correctly, Carjack. They actually last night had a event, their Halloween Jam. They got a mini ramp and a slappy curb, and he's got every egg shape you can ever, the popular egg shapes that are super popular. Heroin Company, not one of the sponsors, but he's sporting all those.
That's the new Katy Stees.
It is kind of the Katy Stees. So big love to them. Also, big love. You'll see one of the boards out here. Michael Sieben and Roger Skateboards. They recently came out with their Water Spirit video, which is freaking fantastic with some gnarly local Austin spots. He brought over a board that we're going to be putting into our auction at some point. It is a unique because it is a sample board and it's not the correct graphic for that board. So he brought a couple of those over that are going to be unique Roger boards. So thank him and thank them and what they're doing. Their team is killing it. So that's super rad. And speaking of teams that are killing it, we also like to, this is also presented by Embassy Skateboards, Lee Liao. Say that, it's not Leal, it's Liao and Embassy. And Steven Pinero, one of their team riders, just qualified for Rome, I believe it is.
No, he finished and qualified in Rome to go on.
in Rome to go on and that's Olympic stuff.
It's
correct?
Olympic
Rick said.
stuff.
So Embassy, they've got their team is killing it. And of course, at the Banger and the Hangar, we'll see that. Plus, Lee takes photos for magazines and all that good stuff. So good big shout out to Embassy, and also some big love to our brand new sponsor, our first non-Texas sponsor, but we're okay because it fits in quite right, and that is Old Bones Therapy. Old Bones Therapy. They bring all the compression sleeves, socks, knee braces, CBD ointment, just a lot of great stuff.
Might be the most accurately named company in the world.
It might be, especially and they're
so necessary.
They're killing it. Their marketing is great. They're pushing skateboarding, roller skating, BMX, anything that's involved that keeps skaters skating, using their compression sleeves and making sure that they can be ready for the next thing.
Wait,
so that's a cool thing.
Not One Wheels, is it?
No, it's not One Wheels. I don't know, maybe. One Wheels is a thing that we're not going to talk about this episode. But before we get started with Mr. Booger, we always bring up a couple of old things. So I thought this was something. Did you know that there is a global skateboarder ranking?
I can't say that I knew that for a fact.
Doesn't surprise you?
Not at all. Yeah, not at all. And I would imagine that it's probably for purposes of seeding for the Olympics.
I guess so, but I don't know. Somebody was
that.
posting. I get it. It's cool. You post your Instagram. You're the so over-ranked skater in the world, whatever. And this dude was like, he had a cool little Insta thing going on, but he was like 1,232nd, 1,200 skaters back, whatever. So I was curious if we were on the rankings, and I guess if it's a global ranking, we should be on those rankings. Where do you think we are?
DFL.
DFL? Explain.
Dead freaking last.
I'd like to think that we're not the last holding up the, whatever the last thing is, but okay. We're pretty far on the...
Sorry, I'm putting myself in like injured reserve.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But if you're not in the top 10, the next best thing... If you're not in the top 10, the next best ranking to have is 69. The next best after that is DFL. You don't want to be number 1,233 or whatever.
Well, I'm going to put it out to our fans. Please send us that complete ranking and let us know where we rank potentially on that list of ranked skaters. I'm sure that there are a few commas. There's got to be a few commas in that number.
Ranked skaters or just rank skaters? Because if it's ranked skaters,
we win that
we might be pretty high.
Yeah. Wash your pads, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Obby's way up there. Phillips would have been top of the list, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that's a whole different topic.
Okay. Well, and last thing that I thought, because it popped up. So a few weeks ago, I sent a joke to Carjack. I say a joke, whatever. I guess it's cool. It's artistic. I don't know. And it was some of these guys that are making these actual concrete and brick, etc., fingerboard DIY spots that they're legitimately using concrete and paint, and it looks like it's all thrashed up and it's all that.
It looks like a science fair diorama. It's so cute.
It's so cute. It's legit, I guess, they make models for cars and pre-building for cityscapes and all that kind of stuff. So, okay. But then after that, the algorithm started sending me, and recently, that there's the tech decks. Decks and fingerboards. And fingerboards are things, which is what they use on these concrete things. And there's dudes that rip that I guess can do all the tricks. I don't know how many edits they take. I don't know if they try to do a kick finger flip and then they break their finger knuckle and then they have to take a few weeks off. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but
I'm going to take issue with your use of the term rip.
Okay.
But are they globally ranked?
Maybe. I don't know. I bet you there's a global rank for that. They are.
They finger rip.
They are. They're committed. So I don't know where this falls into, which might be part of this. But recently, apparently there's a company, and it's a video of a guy sitting at a little machine, and he's got a little urethane tube, and they're making actual urethane wheels with actual bearings, with actual wood painted boards and actual trucks and all that stuff. And you can put them together, but the wheels are urethane. I don't know what the durometer is.
They have more than one. I went and read up on this.
Oh, you deep dove it?
Yeah, because I wanted to see what are they charging for this crap. It's almost as much as buying a real skateboard. To put
fucking
together
balls.
a complete with this thing. A set of those wheels is $30. And these are aspirin-sized wheels.
Aspirin, they're not even as big as baby aspirin
Yeah,
size.
yeah.
They're tiny. You got to have one of those visors with a little thing that you flip
wanna
in front
say
to magnify.
They say what size
like
they
a
are.
jeweler's
The
magnifying
jeweler's
glass.
magnifying glass, exactly.
I want to say they're like 4mm wheels, which would be about the right size for a tech deck.
The 90s.
But to buy one of their little wooden decks is like $35. It's $5 for the grip tape, which is foam, so it doesn't scrape your fingerprints
Fingernails.
off. Yeah. So it's
Gotta keep your
foam
nails
grip
nice.
tape. And then a set of the trucks is like $20 or $25. A set of the wheels is $30. So you add all that up, and it's like $80 to buy one of these stupid fingerboards.
So you're a skateboarder. We hope you're a skateboarder. So you're a skateboarder and you're at home and your mom's in our generation. And there's like, Mom, I want a skateboard. I want to skate. She's, oh, that's cool. Okay, son, let me take you to the skateboard store. And they roll up to the skate shop and he buys a fingerboard instead of an actual skateboard. Does the mom hang her head or does she push him up into the realm of potentially pro future fingerboarder?
Hopefully she buys him a full set of Dungeons & Dragons dice to go with that stupid thing.
Wait a minute. I didn't even ask. Is that a thing? Do you have to roll dice to fingerboard? Is that like a thing? Like you've got to roll a 6-sided die to decide if you're doing a tray flip or a crook?
If you roll a natural 20, it means that you landed the switch tray perfectly down the big set. But if you roll a 1, you broke your kingpin, you ate shit, you broke your knuckle, which would have been your knee, and you're out for the next 6 months.
I swear there's some dude somewhere that is painting little blood marks and scabs on his finger knuckles.
Do you think there's like beef between the guys who have the finger jeans from the 90s that are baggy and the guys with the skinny finger jeans?
Did you see that Tony Hawk just did an advertisement for Hot Wheels is coming out for a Hot Wheels skateboard tech deck, but it's got like these fat little shoes that you put in, and it's sponsored, and it's Tony. We love you, Tony. Seriously, we love you. We're not trying to heckle you, but you get some sponsorship stuff, and Hot Wheels is cool.
Dude, take that Hot Wheels money. Take
but
it.
It's a end cap featured at a store,
Yeah.
and it's got the thing on it, and he's doing a G turn around.
Hey,
He's doing a G turn.
G-turn's about the right speed for our generation at this point.
Yeah. So, man, I don't know, but I just thought that there was something that I couldn't pass by mentioning because it's a thing. There's board companies. They're painting the decks and all that, and I get it. That's cool. You're talking about a guy who has one of the largest vintage skateboard toy collections, but that's like Snoopy's and Bart Simpson's and Godzilla's and stuff.
The operative term is vintage, and you're admitting it's a toy collection. You're not spending $80 on a tech deck so that you can do better, more accurate tray flip replicas.
One thing is at least these guys are not behind computers their entire life. And
Oh, they
behind
are.
Screen.
I bet you they are.
You're probably
right.
But they're at least out there trying to get on the global ranking.
This is true. So we want our fans to do this. We want the global ranking for skateboarders and where we're included. And did they make a global ranking for fingerboardist? Wait, is it fingerboardist or boarders?
Ist implies artisticness, so no, it's an
And
Now,
All right.
speaking of global rankings, and you brought up Tony Hawk, this seems like a good time to mention and say congratulations to his son Riley
Oh, that was rad.
for marrying Kurt Cobain's daughter, Frances Bean. That's the most 90s thing I could ever possibly think of. I thought for sure it had to be an internet hoax at first, but it's apparently
I had heard that they were
100% true.
dating, and I think he mentioned something briefly in one of his Hawk Wolf
They've
things.
been together for like 2 years, evidently.
But I mean, remember that
What I want to
there's-
know now is, did that marriage, does Riley get credit? Does that bump him up in the international rankings?
I mean, it has to. It's not Kardashian level, but I mean,
figured
it's,
Riley was already ranked pretty well. He's
Oh, sure.
a fantastic skateboarder. I'd give him extra points for marrying Francis.
Does Francis have a skill that we don't like? Is she a singer or anything?
She's a singer.
She's a singer or something like that?
She's an artist.
Yeah.
An
Well,
artist.
and Tony, don't forget, Tony's dad recently bought that Jeff Phillips deck that was repainted with the Iron Maiden graphic.
Tony's
that was,
dad?
I'm sorry. Tony,
Riley's
the dad
dad.
of Riley.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say.
Kramer. And he bought that board for we don't know how much with the Iron Maiden graphic.
Yeah.
That was a Jeff Phillips breakout.
Yes.
That he did some tricks on as that setup was. And then he did a bunch of remake boards and auctioned them off. But just tie-ins.
That's another great point. It all comes back to Texas.
It
Yep.
does all come back to Texas.
It is good to know that Kurt Cobain wrote a Jeff Phillips board.
That's true. That's pretty cool. Speaking of coming back to Texas, we talked about our pro level sponsors. Once again, Southside Hangar, Roger, Embassy, and Old Bones Therapy. We got some bros. Our bros, Mike Money at Cockfight, who we saw recently and talked about on the last episode.
Don't forget Cat at Cherry's Wheels.
Oh, yeah. Cat at Cherry's Wheels. She'll be out at the Banger. They're killing it, as we always talk about. Cat Palace. Jesse doing our stickers, decals, banners, and all that good stuff. You can check out Cat Palace, and we can give you his info, or we'll put that in our links, of course. And as we continue to talk about all these shout-outs and all these name drops and all these mentions, we happen to know these people. It's cool that we name drop them, but we're not necessarily doing it for the ego part of it, but it is something that we're stoked to start hearing these people stoked, and Rainey is one of those. And so introducing his shop, Break Free, so a Texas skateboard owned shop in Oakland, California, that is doing killer things out there. Just had a great photo show. And so Rainey Perez, we'd like to thank him and his shop for being one of those sponsors for us, one of those bro sponsors. So wow, we are 26 minutes in, Carjack.
Congratulations on keeping it that short.
At this point here in episode 6, our 6-pack episode, we've had 2 interviews. We've had Jimmy Gonzalez, Corpus Christi, and we've done a lot of talk about the Corpus area and the South Texas area. We had Kenny Harrison and Maggie on. Kenny from Corpus Christi area, Maggie, his daughter, ranked in slalom skating, and that whole influence. And then we've skipped in with some of ours, but now we're really starting to get some interviews that are looking to book. I've talked to quite a few people, like I mentioned, upcoming Johnny. I know we're going to have people at the Banger, Tim Litzman, Mark Wheelis, some of these old school names, and that's before we even get all to the names that a lot of people know.
They're finally starting to suspect that this isn't just a scam on our part.
Right. Yeah. Mike Money originally said, you guys are going to do this, but you're not going to like drop off after a couple episodes. We hope not. I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff going on in Texas right now, seriously.
And it might not be that far of a fall to drop off.
It might not be that far. Well, I'm short. So with that, and I mentioned earlier, but let's do something official. Sitting here with us is our very good friend, William Booger Cram. What's
Thanks
up,
for
brother?
the invite, guys.
Yeah, no,
Appreciate
you're
it.
absolutely.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thanks for coming out.
So here's the quick. I've known Boog. I can't remember when I first met you, but with my friends that always used to go to Galveston, and my parents had a condo on the seawall, Galveston. It's the one that's got all the
remember
different
that.
color
The crayon
units.
boxes.
Yes, that place. They had one right next to the light because we used to sit and drink beer, and when the light stopped, we used to heckle people and do stupid
Wait, you
shit
mean
like that.
the crayon box condos that are like kind of over by the flagship hotel?
39th and
Pretty
Seawall.
close. Yeah. My parents had a condo there that we had, like, it was a timeshare. So 2 weeks out of the year.
That's pretty close. Like, that's almost where my mom grew up. Her dad was a captain in the Coast Guard, and she grew up. Like,
Captain in the
In the
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard homes?
yeah.
Yeah. Coast Guard homes.
Oh,
are
yes,
all-
it is right next to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right
there's a
down the
little
street.
skate spot right
Yeah, by
within that parking
what's
lot.
the hotel that was the old batteries at the Galvez?
It was right next to.
San Luis.
The San Luis, yeah.
San Luis is on the hill. It's an old battery.
Yeah, so right next to
the
that
other
was-
side of the light is Guido's.
Yes.
39th.
Yeah.
Right. That's right there.
That's
So-
where my mom grew up.
So I used to, to take this back on track, I used to go to Galveston and we did that. So that's probably where I met you. I'm not really sure exactly unless you remember where we
Through Bob
met.
Fox.
Through Bob Fox.
Yeah.
We're going to give us some love and some shout out to our Galveston friends. Bob Fox is one of my oldest skateboarder friends. And at that time, Bob was driving to my house to go to Highway 6 and skate a ramp called the BH Briar Hills or the Swamp Ramp. And I had a Vice Sure Grip Vice board. The next board I got was a Booger board. But I know you're itching to get into it, but before we get, so we got that Booger board, and I had that Booger board for I don't know how long, and unfortunately I don't know what happened to it. I can't find photos. I've been asking people and can't find them.
Yeah.
What year would that board have been?
Would have been 82.
82.
Yeah, because it was after during or aligned during that same little tenure that I was hooked up with Sims.
Okay, all right, and we're gonna dig into.
So that was a Sims board?
No, it was actually cut by Jerry Madrid.
Oh,
Madrid,
cool.
yeah.
Nice.
And it was, I remember it having a little bit of cut and shape to it.
It's like a foil tail.
Okay. And it was white, and it had hot pink and black graphics of, you said a skeleton and a...
Yeah, it was a skeleton that was, remember the overcoat was like a really big deal in and around that period of time. Right. So we put the skeleton in an overcoat standing alongside of a trash can that had a skateboard sticking out of it. And Lynn Stevens, who now lives in Hawaii, unbelievable black skater surfer from Galveston. He did the art on it. So I got to shout out to Lynn.
That's rad. And get inspiration from dudes carrying shotguns and overcoats and shooting at people, I suppose, because it was a trend to wear the overcoats.
It was a full-on
definitely
trend.
For a while. So that's where I met you back in the day, way back. But the reason that you're here is because you go much, much deeper. And as we've dug into this Texas history, and we all agree, as we were talking before this episode started, we just haven't got our just due. And there are so many stories and so many amazing skaters that don't get highlighted, will never get interviewed, and won't get the props that they've been due. And that's part of why we're digging through this. And you are yet another archive of an amazing amount of stuff that we're going to try to trickle through as we go. But before we get into this, I did a couple of things and wanted to ask you a couple of questions. First off, we talked about your pro model. I guess that was a pro model, right? A bro model at the time?
It was a shop board that Robbie, I worked at Sunrise from basically spring of 80 to 85.
And Sunrise, real quick, was the main surf shop on the seawall, and it was historic. The gentleman just passed away 4 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah. As a matter of fact, his wife called all the team riders together to be the pallbearers. So we were super honored to do that. And we found out many, many stories. This being one of the stories, because whatever board sales I had, he'd slide me money to go on trips.
Sunrise was an epic. I have a sticker from, it was like Go Surfing or something in Sunrise Surf Shop. And
it had like Pray for Surf.
Something
and they
like
had
that.
All these, bumper sticker styles, old school bumper stickers.
So where do you think, we were looking back and we believe now, everybody thinks of Johnny in Texas early, but at this point, when we're talking about this time frame, he was little, I guess 82 or so. So we believe that, I think you mentioned this, not Stuart Singer. There was another gentleman you mentioned who had a board by Fairflex, right?
Not by Veriflex.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So and I've got the picture in my phone. I pulled it. Bobby Morrow had the first board in 75 or 76.
Okay, now,
man,
I know that name.
Amazing.
I know that name. Who was the company?
Sunrise Surf Shop. And it was the same kind of deal. Robbie would produce surfboards and skateboards.
In Texas,
in Galveston. And then it's like, if that guy was the guy, they got a board.
Was he pressing boards, or was it made out of different, so it was solid oak still at this point. Before kicktail layers.
75, 76, that was probably solid.
Straight flat, but was it a pig? It wasn't a pig board yet.
No, it would have been very reminiscent of a Logan Erskine flat.
Okay.
Before kicktail.
Right. So then, and again, he is... His name again, I'm sorry.
Bobby Morrow.
Now, I've heard that name a bunch of times.
I'll tell you this. The correlation is that in the pinnacle, in my best estimation or my opinion, and Brett Anderson would agree, the two at the top of the pinnacle were Bobby Morrow and Mark Wheelis.
Mark Wheelis. Now, there was another, one of the Hispanic kids. I can't remember which name it is. I see his name all the time. It'll probably come
Andrew
up.
Lopez.
Lopez, yes. He comes up a lot.
Andrew and I were right around the same period of time with Sims.
Is this the gentleman that Brett Anderson told me is now like a high-end physician? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So,
he's
okay.
a doctor. Yeah.
All right. So that's very cool. So we think that his board, Bobby Morrow,
Yes.
then Stuart Singer.
Stuart had to come along in around 80 because I've got a picture in my book, which I'll show you.
We got lots of photos.
And Stuart's board was with Kryptonics.
Nice.
Oh, I thought it was okay.
Well, if it was all out of Boulder boards, right? So there's the Stuart Singer board, right
Which
there.
is a thin, almost freestyle looking board.
So I had that because, we all rode the disciplines back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
It was freestyle, slalom, and vert.
Or bowl. And maybe high jump, maybe all sorts of
There's a
stuff.
category called bank to bowl or bank to slalom, something.
That's kind of along the line of where a lot of like freestyle tubs were at, freestyle bowls. They had banks in them.
And then it was bowl, then half pipe.
I think it depended on the
In that
park
USA
and what
contest, that they mentioned those different disciplines.
Well, I think
and
it's
it was half
because
pipe.
the park in San Antonio had a half pipe and it had a bowl section that turned into a bank section.
Right. And I think every park at that point in time, be it either Holly Hills or Galveston or Skateboard City, they were all different. They were coming out of that 70s realm of like, let's pour a lot of concrete. We'll make a lot of money off these kids that want to roll. And then what is it? Well, there wasn't really a lot of transition going on. So there was banks beforehand.
Banks and all surf, wavy, flowy
Very
type.
flowy.
Yeah.
Very flowy. And that's where Bob Morrow that's where the cutting of that edge started happening.
Okay, so and is he still around?
Still around.
All right.
Still
And
around.
do you know how to get a hold of him?
Fully.
Oh,
Talk to him.
God.
I talk to him weekly.
Well, then we might need to get that gentleman.
he's
Let
aware.
him know.
I contacted his ex-wife this morning to send me a picture of the board. And so I got a picture of the board.
See, y'all, this is what we're trying to do. We started this thing realizing, there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been talked about, and we need to dig in, and this is all stuff that Carjack and I knew, but there's so much more.
Let me put this into context and who Bobby was. And no shade on Mark Wheelis or any of the other guys. And I know this is that rabbit hole that I'm talking about.
All those
down.
names come up in the early days, and
Right.
all those names were global ranking. All those guys were placing in these events or disciplines.
So just to parallel this a little bit, you got Brian Abel out there too. So he potentially could have been the first Texas pro, which he was riding for Hobie back in the days, from what I recall. But
was
Bobby
he pro or I guess
here
that's
again, it's such a gray area, Bob Morrow, if you put it back in the context of everything, Bob Morrow was the GOAT. Bar
okay.
none, all right?
Okay.
So
Wow. All right.
he was our Stacy. He was our TA. He was our Larry Berleman. He was our Mark Richards.
And
because
he
the
was
guy crossed
Galveston.
Galveston because
Okay.
he crossed over from surf to skate.
How old is he?
He's 64, 65
Okay, so
now.
still in that just under the Jeff Bauer and Jimmy Gonzalez age.
Yeah.
We'll get to some correlations with that. But
This is how good Bobby Morrow was. In 80, he was selected to the U.S. surf team. And so his teammate was Tom Curran.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit.
So now you're riding with the GOAT of surfing. Right? And Bobby Morrow is his teammate.
And he's from Texas
And
versus
he's from
California.
Texas.
Waves are different. The whole
The U.S.
thing.
team was like a conglomeration of all riders from West to East Coast to go compete in Australia.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I challenge anybody out there at that particular time, give me a rider at that point that could say, okay,
Right.
I'll ride against you. And it was Mark Wheelis.
And at that point, because there's so little competitions at that point, it was all based on basically how everybody felt about them. I know there were some competitions coming in, and we'll get to that. Now, before we get to this, I love this stuff. This is great. This is exactly what we want to dig into. Hi, YouTube fans.
Got a reference photo to show you.
Okay. Well, do that reference photo because I'm going to skip to something in a minute and then go
Bob
ahead.
Morrow. That's Northeast Skate Slopes.
I was going to say,
And
that's
he
would've won this
is
event.
he doing is that a grind, nose grab grind?
Nose grab,
is he grinding?
grind, yeah.
On a noping,
Yeah.
or whatever, noping. I call it noping.
And what's he got on the rear truck?
Oh, is that a lapper?
Before lappers were
Yeah.
lappers.
Oh, that was the one that was just that like weird. It looked like a shin guard, kind of.
And it was metal.
Yeah.
It was metal.
So it made extra
Anti-hang-up
noise.
device.
Yeah.
So you
Anti-hang-up.
ground that also.
You do vertical board slides.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was doing hang-ups, vertical board slides before there were disasters.
Yeah, and of
That's
course,
pretty
looking
rad.
at that, he's got the old school helmet. He's got the old
Oh, yeah.
school pads
Rocking
with
a
no
Cooper
pads.
helmet. A
Cooper
Cooper
helmet,
helmet.
which was a hockey helmet.
A hockey helmet.
Yeah,
It had
hockey
one
helmet.
too. I think that might have been mine, as a matter of fact. But
Man.
I didn't go.
Well, this is what I want to definitely dig into. But before I do that, I found a couple of things. I just thought I'd get these out of the way so we don't forget them later. I thought they were pretty cool. First off, you own a shop,
I do.
Ohana,
I do.
and you've owned that shop for how long?
This is 19 years coming up.
19 years coming up. And they brought us a super rad signboard, and he brought us a couple of things. So you're now a bro sponsor. That's what
I'd like to sponsor to the show too.
Like to
So
sponsor.
I've got a little something for
We'll
you.
talk about that. We might exchange some phone numbers and some digits. But anyway, we appreciate it because we know you get what we're doing. You
Oh,
know
I fully
exactly what we're
get it.
doing. But before we get to that, in your shop, because your shop is a surf shop, skate shop.
Yes.
And now, how many skate shops are in Galveston at this stage?
Full-fledged, really ourselves, but Surf Specialties also sells.
Is it still there?
speaker-
Okay, I didn't know
Surf
special.
Specialties is still there, but it's under the moniker of Strictly Hardcore.
Okay, but it's mostly surf again.
And it's mostly surf, yeah.
Okay.
So that's one thing. I don't claim to be a surfer. I did surf. I don't claim to be a surfer. I'm the skateboard.
Sure, but you're in Galveston, you're involved, and that's kind of one of the things that I found is that every year you do some kind of surfs up dog surf paddle out, and Tracy Weller's just leaning his ear in. You go and take dogs, and I guess you take them out surfing for raising funds or something. Explain it because I don't know.
Sure. 10 years ago, we launched Surf Dog. And Surf Dog, as the West Coast and East Coast have their events, there was nothing on the Gulf Coast, so I recognized that. So we went in and aligned ourselves with the Galveston Island Humane Society, and we courted sponsors, and we got entry fees and sold merch and so forth and so on. So off of our early days of garnering probably in the neighborhood of around $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. I mean, we're now encroaching on $20,000 a year that we're giving
Super
back
rad.
to our Galveston Island Humane group. So that helps get dogs, cats, pets in general, all taken care of and fostered. And we've got great sponsors, one of which is Tito's for dog people out of Boston.
yeah.
They're like our big corporate buddy, and they have a foundation which assists humane groups like ours and or shelters.
That is so good.
So it's a day of surfing on the beach. Literally, the beach has gone to the dogs.
No, yeah, and it's
awesome.
literally there are
I love
pictures
that.
of you take the
That's
dogs
our-
out on
yeah.
the ankle snappers,
That's it.
basically, and you let them kind of ride
That's
the wave in. So that's one of the things that we're finding is, and I know this is all over the world, but for Texas, there's a lot of cool things for down. And when I hear something about your shop doing stuff that's giving back, that's building community, it obviously, I mean, part of the reason you're doing that is to build community and give back and all that. It also brings some people into your shop, and I mean, it does ability. But I think that tying it into the community is key, and there's a lot of skate shops out there that don't necessarily do a good job of that, or they're afraid to go into that because they're not going to be core, whatever. But we're finding as we get older, a lot of those shops and a lot of the things that are important are because you are combining community with skating, and it's more of, it's more of an overall family thing, I guess.
Well,
for
and
right
that's
better.
exactly the definition of Ohana. It's a Hawaiian term, family. So we're incorporating that concept of not being that core shop where mom and dad feel uneasy about walking in because, hey, typically when we grew up, they were all in head shops, right?
Yep.
Right.
So no, we don't sell bongs or anything of that nature, but we sell good times.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
that's really what it kind of gets down to.
That is awesome. So don't forget to mark that down when you go into Galveston. Go check out and talk to Boog. He'll be there, or maybe he won't. I don't know. You have people
usually
sometimes
there.
there. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So before we dig into the good skateboard history, I also thought this was kind of interesting. I found this. The owner of a Galveston surf shop was attacked by a patron with a power drill on Tuesday morning. A surf shop owner was attacked with a man with a power drill. I assume it didn't have a cord on it. I assume it was cordless. And that was brought to you by the Texas police. And it talks about William Boog, the owner of Ohio Skate Shop, confirmed. And blah, blah, blah. I guess some people came in off the street and attacked him, etc. But Boog, tell us about a guy running in with a power drill. And this is on the Strand. This is in the Strand.
No, I'm on the seawall.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the seawall. I'm just like 3 blocks west of the Pleasure Pier, so that's 25th. You know, when I refer to Galveston or we look at Galveston, we always refer to it in street numbers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can only go alphabetical from the backside or street numbers, you know, from east to west. So it was an evening that I was in the store, and 3 of the kids were at the counter, and they just bought a fresh set of wheels. And I assumed that they were younger than 18 years of age or so, and they were hanging out. And this guy randomly comes in about 5:30, and we were going to close at 6. And no, he didn't bring in the power drill, but the power drill was off to my left-hand side because I had just fixed a door.
Oh, okay.
And so it was a cordless drill, and it was sitting off to the side, and he was not all there. You know,
okay.
he was mentally disturbed. And in the very end, he was going through the store and he was just shouting out at the top of his lungs randomness. And the 3 kids at the counter are like going, "What's up with this guy?" I go, "This is I-45, man. You know, it ends right here, and we get the crazies."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, we get them on the seawall, and no telling who they are. So I told them to be quiet. And they did. They were still working on their board, and I wasn't interacting with him, but he was talking to somebody. He wasn't talking to us, though.
Right.
So
just jibber jabbering.
It was jibber jabber and listen to your mother and father. I hate to talk about this guy, but
that's fine. I thought I found it.
It happened, and that he left. He made a purchase. I gave him a discount because it was the end of the day.
What did he buy?
He bought a Hawaiian print shirt, and he went next door, and he said he asked the bartender or bartenders, "How did I look in the shirt?" And they said that he looked rather gay. In a different term.
Yeah, so right. The old 80s term we can't talk about. But he was flamboyantly flamboyant at that point. Okay.
Yeah. So he came back in with the shirt wadded up, and he goes, "I want my money back." And I'm like going, "Whoa, what happened?" And before that, I told the boys, he's coming back. Oh, I had a premonition about this guy. And so he walked in, he had the shirt wadded up, and he came to the counter and he put it down on the counter. And I'm going, "What happened?" He told me the story about going over and what the opinion was. And I'm like going, "Man," I said, "You wore it out. You know, I don't really do refunds. So what else can I do for you?" And I was trying to be really nice. But then he went from probably 3 or 4 on the Richter scale to like 9. He goes, "You're going to give my money back," and then plunked down a pin on the counter, which made it look like he had a knife. And I'm like, I removed the pin from his hand, and I said, "It's time for you to go, or I'm going to make a phone call, and we'll make sure that..."
Now, you're a sizable dude. Was he a sizable dude?
He was about my size.
I mean, you still don't want to fuck with him, but it's still...
I didn't know what was going on at that point. And the boys at the counter were flipping out at that point. Yeah. And he goes, "Call the police." And he came around the corner of the counter and saw the drill. And so he started...
I'm going to call police because I'm about to fuck some shit up.
Yeah. So, I ended up with a couple, pretty good bruises for blocking.
But the boys helped you, right?
I had him facing, which would have been north, behind the counter. And I'm thinking, I don't want to go through the glass counter.
Yeah.
And as soon as he grabbed me, I go, "Fellas." They came around the backside, and the littlest guy, as I 180'd him toward their direction, he jumped on like a little spider monkey.
That was the greatest thing. That's his hero story.
Oh, dude.
It's fucking hero story.
This is what you can count on skateboarders for.
Oh, yeah. They hung out, and they were like going, He was trying to kill you.
Yeah, right, sure.
So,
And this all happened in the span of like a few minutes.
I mean, less than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, the kid jumped on him, put him in like a full-on figure four, and his legs wrapped around him. And we all three went down behind the counter. And then there's like this pool of blood. I go, where's this blood coming from? And during the course of the fall, this guy had Frankensteined himself.
Oh,
right?
Yeah,
okay.
So
that's
he got
karma.
a pretty good gash. And
Note to folks, coined Frankenstein. That's a specific injury to the forehead. You've been Frankensteined. Glossary with booger.
That's it.
The full Frankenstein is if you get kingpin bolts.
So, he was kicking and thrashing. And the Hunter, the kid, he was like going, you move one more time, I'm going to choke you out.
Yeah.
And he never choked him out, but I asked one of the kids, little black kid, Ty. I go, Ty, call the police.
Skater,
goes,
I know who Ty is, I think.
He's a little bitty, wiry kid. He's so cool. I got a really intermix of kids in the neighborhood. And he's 14 years old. I go, Ty, call the police. How do you call the police?
Oh, shit. Okay.
He never called the police.
He didn't get the 911 memo.
Yeah, so I said, all right, Brad, call the police. And so we have this guy down, and police were there like no time at all. I think anytime any of our properties get a call, then they're there.
Yeah, Galveston's not huge, but I mean, whatever. Okay.
So he got picked up, and what did you guys hit him with? We did not touch him.
Yeah, we didn't hit him.
We never hit him. And I told the guys, don't hit them, because they were cocked.
Yeah, they're
ready to go with boards in their hands.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, I don't mean to end this on, but the report says that the gentleman passed away. I don't know if it was a reflection of that event.
I got more of a story actually about 2 weeks ago of the story.
Oh,
so he had bonded out. Well, no, I knew what had happened, but he had bonded out. He was from Miami or so, and on his way of after bonding out, leaving Galveston and between here and Miami, he committed suicide.
Ugh.
I'm like going, holy crap, man.
Well, that's unfortunate, and people have problems,
it was a mental issue.
We're glad that you're good, and it's always good to. I've seen a couple of things where a couple of buddies were around and we're skaters, so we're skater buddies, and there's been a group of people that have attacked, and kind of we hold out for our own and make sure that's cool. So what a crazy story. As a shop, I mean, as any kind of retail shop owner, you're always thinking getting robbed. You get all those normal things that you think. Have you been robbed?
Our first year.
Was it a gunpoint thing?
Allegedly it was. I wasn't
you didn't know it was the through the shirt?
Yeah, it was a through the shirt kind of thing. The guy got caught before he even got across the park.
That's so scary.
That's how quick GPD is on our properties.
GPD, that's Galveston Police Department.
Yeah, no, we're pretty well protected.
Wow, Booger, he is a outstanding retail owner. What?
For your shop, is Mardi Gras a money making season, or is it a close the doors season?
It depends on the weather and if I have surf. Because if I've got surf, then kids skate all day long.
Yeah, right? I've been in Mardi Gras in Galveston, and it's
does it get more people in the shop, is what you're saying?
Yeah, well, I just know Mardi Gras in Galveston is going off.
Bonkers.
It definitely goes off. I mean, it generates, I'll tell you what, I'd much rather have a day that starts off warm and sunny. And then if it gets into the evening hours,
gets cold.
Hey, man, I wore my t-shirt just, and then I need to get a hoodie. I need to get a long sleeve.
So what happened in the snow 3 years ago, I guess it was. Snowmageddon. When it snowed, that's only the second time I'd been in Galveston when it snowed back in 90s or early 80s. But did you sell out all your hoodies and stuff?
Well, no, we couldn't even open for 2 days. We slept in the store. It was warmer in the store than it was at home. And because we were along the seawall, we were getting rolling power. I would be able to turn on the heater
for a couple hours
or less.
You're right, yeah.
And get it semi-warm, and we camped out there. So, but nobody was. The seawall, honestly, was an ice rink.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
I've
crazy.
got pictures on my phone. I'll show you.
I've seen that
It's
before.
So was that the
unbelievable.
same ice storm that hit Austin at the
Yes,
same time, like
yes.
3 years ago?
Yeah.
So most of Austin was completely blacked out for several days.
Right.
I was one of
And
them.
People like
I couldn't work.
water
for a
was
week.
shut off or people's pipes froze. So people started off. Several people would like fill their bathtub so they had water in
Right.
case the pipes froze. But then the power went out and the water in the bathtub froze. So now they had a giant ice block.
Yeah.
I never lost power out here.
That's a good thing.
And you see, I've got some room. So
That's because you have a sponsorship with the devil.
I'm on Austin Energy out here. We just have better infrastructure. But I was telling friends like, man, I saw you post on Facebook. It looks like you're living in, an igloo. Like, come out here. We've got power. We got food. Come out. And they're like, if we try to drive out to Lakeway from Austin, we'll die. Our car can't make it. And I'm like, you don't have a car that can drive. They're like, there's ice on the roads.
Yeah, of course.
I've got a truck with 4-wheel drive. So we drove into Austin and rescued some of our friends and brought them out here for a couple days.
Well, we on the island were not prepared. I
Yeah,
will
I'll
tell you
bet.
that.
Everybody that's not from Texas is heckling the shit out of
And
us right now.
do you know what pier and beam is?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
sure,
Okay,
sure.
all right, yeah.
You're asking Carjack if you know it.
70% of the homes are pier and beam.
Oh, for sure.
Which means the pipes freeze because there's air underneath.
yeah. So we were.
Man. Tangent with Boog and Carjack this time.
Sorry, yeah,
My
sorry.
last fun fact before we really dig into the history is we're almost an hour into this, but we're having fun. We hope you're having fun. Thank you for joining along.
Real quick on this one before we get off of it. On the same thread with Snowmageddon, how bad did you guys get flooded with Harvey?
33 no, not Harvey. Ike.
It was Ike? Okay. Ike.
Yeah, Harvey, we had no problem.
It was just wind?
Harvey was more a water event for the mainland versus it being on the island.
Well,
because
yeah,
the
I mean, I
island
know
kind of-
Houston got like 65 inches of rain.
This is a hurricane, by
but
the
I've
way.
seen-
20 minutes off of the island, and those are those iconic photos that you saw with airboats and people. I had a friend actually drowned in his house. He was a paraplegic, and he drowned in
that
his
sucks.
house alone. You know?
No, I saw footage. I grew up in like Bear Creek in the like Highway 6 north of I-10 section. And I saw my neighborhood where I grew up on the news, and it was somebody driving down my street in a boat.
Yeah.
Like the water was above the mailboxes.
Yeah.
But I've seen from when Ike hit down on the Strand by what's the candy shop? La King's. Yeah. There's a water line painted like 10 feet up.
Yeah, all the properties down and around that area, they got like 1900 storm mark.
Yeah.
They have 1906 or 1915 watermark, and then Ike.
Yeah, which is even
Ike
higher.
is like 2
nuts.
and 3 feet greater than.
And I was like, God, it was that deep, and like for how long? Like, just overnight, couple, like not for like a week.
Well,
or
I
anything.
live
Like
closer to the beach, and I had like just underneath my doorknob, so that's what about maybe 36 inches or so.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's awful. Saltwater in a home.
No, I've got an uncle who's got a beach house out in West Pirate Beach, and it's funny because all the old beach houses from the 60s are on like 8-foot piers, and all the new ones are on 14-foot piers.
Yeah.
They were fine. The 8-foot ones got nailed.
That's new code now.
Yeah.
You have to be basically a second story.
Yeah, because the flood line was right around 12.
The wonders of Galveston. I can't even imagine what home insurance cost there. All right, changing directions with my last fun fact with Booger. Apparently, is this correct? You graduated with a Southern Oral History program from UNC.
Incorrect.
There is a person named William Boog Cram that graduated from UNC at North Carolina and Chapel Hill with a Southern Oral History program.
With the same nickname?
I would Google it.
Oh, go figure.
So that's not you. So never mind. I don't have anything to talk about him being a Tar Heel or some shit.
I went to Harvard by the Sea.
Harvard. So you're
That's called Galveston.
So let's dig. So you're Galveston born and bred.
Yes.
What year?
61, December of 61. So I'll be 62 in December.
Congratulations. And you just got your right or left hip done?
Oh, left hip.
Left hip. Took you a second.
Yeah, I had to think about that because obviously I've gotten both of them done. So I got.
Oh, you did? Okay, so you're done.
Yeah,
oh, all right.
I'm a double.
So you know.
Yeah, I got February the right And
I didn't know that earlier. Okay.
And then I got mid-September, the left. And so I'm, 6 weeks on now?
A year from September, you'll be good. I have that experience personally.
Look at me
lumpy.
sitting here with these couple of hippies.
Hippies, ho, ho, ho. Hey, so you grew
I know
up.
it's only a matter of time for me.
You grew up on the island.
Grew up on the island.
You've never left the island.
I left the island in 97 because I was part of the original Yaga crew.
Oh, yes.
And we left in 97 and I returned in December of 2000. So what is that tenure? March to...
Right.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
All right. And since...
Huntington Beach, California.
There you go. As you've listened to the previous episodes, and thank you everybody here in our 6-pack episode 6, we've talked a lot about Corpus Christi. We talked about the coast. We talked about Jimmy and Jeff Bauer, trying to get Jeff Bauer in. I think Jeff's also a little bit older than you, if I understand. And we've talked about a lot of stuff, what's going on. But right up the coast, I mean, Galveston's how far from Corpus Christi?
3.5 hours.
3.5 hours up the coast.
200 miles down coast.
Yeah.
But before we get to like the Holly Hills opening, all that stuff, the 70s, you Booger was nice enough to bring a lot of things for us to look at, and he even did his own outline, and that's going to help out with our questions. The first thing you mentioned here is the neighborhood crew from 71 to 74. But before we get to that, you're in Galveston.
Right.
Surfing is a thing.
Huge.
What is your first recollection of hearing about a skateboard, seeing a skateboard, or the transition from surf to skate, since you said you weren't a surfer?
I think it kind of went hand in hand because my cousin, Sandra, who gave me my nickname, which is a whole other story.
I was going to say, okay, we don't want to tangent that yet, but we are interested. Okay.
So that would have been, I had the nickname.
Did you pick your nose a lot?
No,
okay,
it was to the contrary.
Okay.
It would have been a lot easier to explain that.
Okay, we won't tangent. Okay, so go ahead.
So she gave my brother and I our first surfboards. And I know I had a Dewey Weber. And it was a log.
And you did start from surfing. Your standing sideways career starting from surfing.
I'm in the standing regular foot position.
Okay.
And so I know it had to have been right around 71 or so because we had not moved to our childhood home. Well, our teenage home. Okay. And so we had the boards there. But then at that same period of time, we had neighbors that lived right across the street from us that when their little sister was born, we discovered a plank and some roller skates.
Okay.
So
that somebody had nailed together, put
we
together.
nailed together a plank skateboard.
Okay, so Jimmy tells the story in his episode 3 that he independently over the radio heard about people sidewalk surfing and kind of did this DIY in his garage. Now, we made the point that he's not staking claim to be the first, but that he had the quote-unquote independent idea of that. So is that similar to what you're thinking, how that came about?
We had the material things on our hands for some reason or another. So why we thought about, nailing a plank onto like an old set of roller skates. I mean, metal wheels, metal truck system that, you know what I'm speaking of.
Yeah.
We had the wherewithal to pound it out, make it flat, and then nail it to a plank. On the days that we weren't really into that, then obviously there was a dude we were kids. One on the nose on the longboard, one on the tail, and we would tandem ride and make 4 stops to the beach.
4 stops, meaning you traded off?
We would trade off because there would be 3 or 4
So one pushes and the other just rides? Like you're pumping somebody on a bicycle?
Or we're either pumping and someone's holding, or there was a second or a third bike rider. I'm tired. I got to go the next leg, pull someone in, and then they'd be on the nose and tail. So we're splitting 20 pounds or 40 pounds. So it's 20 each, right?
Right. And of course, as we know, it's on metal wheels.
No. I'm speaking of surfboards.
Oh, surfboards.
We're doing both at the same time.
Oh, okay.
We're doing both at the same time. So we're skating on the sidewalk, with the metal plank, or with the metal wheel skate and board, and surfing.
Okay.
And we're on bikes, though.
Okay.
So you're talking about taking carrying the board to the beach.
A mile.
On your
Right.
bicycle.
Okay. Mile. Okay.
Yeah.
And
This
you're
is a
little, so that's a
40
lot.
pound surfboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's fucking logs.
Yeah, they were logs.
Okay,
Yes,
so
the
you got
fishermen.
okay. So continue on. You got to the beach, and that's
So we'd game on, we'd surf, and then how we got it home, then it was just like you're spent.
thing. Yeah,
You're
yeah.
spent, you know. So then we'd get it on back home and repeat the process.
right.
So
And back home's a little bit of an uphill, not a whole lot. It's mostly flat in Galveston, but
the only uphill. Well, fortunately, where we would cut across on 47th, it was flat.
Okay.
There was no rise like how 45th.
To the beach. Okay.
Yeah, there was no rise in the. It was really flat.
local knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. So we chose the path.
All right, so you're saying that was in the 71. So the first bullet point you hit is the neighborhood
Yeah.
crew 71, 74. What did you want to bring up? Who did you want to bring up?
Oh, that was-
Where did you skate? What were you doing maneuvers?
Just trying to survive, you know. So, but this photo.
Now, while you're figuring the photo, what was your knowledge as far as hearing about skateboarding or the media from California about skateboarding or your friends down the coast in Corpus? Was there any of that?
Zero.
So this was all whatever you figured out on your. You had a toy
yeah.
from. We talked about this. The metal wheel skateboards was a toy fad that died because it was a horrible build. You know, they got returned all the time, and so. But you guys kept playing with the toy.
We just kept
basically.
playing with the toy to the point where I remember now somehow or another I discovered a clay wheel board,
Okay.
and this is my Spark.
Okay.
All right. So I'm riding on my belly. I still must be like 7, 8 years old or so.
Yeah.
At my cousin's house.
And these boards are tiny.
These
So
boards are tiny, like
Yeah.
23, 24 inches at
Right.
the very most, you know? And I just remember this board. It somehow or another, my uncle must have cut this board for my cousin's brother. And it was linoleum. It was out of an old countertop.
Yeah.
And somehow or another, again, these old school trucks and clay wheels were put onto this board. Where it came from, I have no idea, but I remember riding it in the driveway. And, you know, obviously when we're that little, what are we going to do first? Ride on our bellies.
Yeah. Yeah.
sure,
Right.
or your butt
Paddling out.
scoot,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
any of those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or paddling out. You're right.
So I'm riding on my belly and I'm like, oh, cool. Look in the wheels roll. And the pebble sticks inside the wheel. Spark. I'm
Okay, so
seeing
when you
the
say-
wheel actually spark.
Oh, the wheel spark, not a spark in your head.
A spark in the head and
Okay.
a spark on the wheel that I'm like on, I really like this.
Oh, so
That's the spark.
The spark is figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
Am I got that correct, Jack?
That's
Am I
it.
grammarly
Sure,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
And I can see it as if it were yesterday.
Really?
I
Now, was
remember.
this a hit the rock, spark, and screech stop fall?
Wheel doesn't want to roll anymore.
Okay,
And,
okay.
you know, you're on your belly, so you're not going to really fall very far.
Well,
but-
that's true. Yeah.
But you see it spark. And I'm like, going, oh, cool. Pebble shoots out, hits you in the eye, and your mama's full on story. You'll shoot your eye out, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
But no, that didn't happen to me. But
Okay.
that's when I believe just afterwards, my mom bought a board for my brother for his birthday.
How old is your brother to you?
My brother is 3 years younger.
Younger. Okay.
Younger.
Okay.
So that would have been in and around when we were probably 10 to 11 years
Okay,
old.
okay.
So this is getting a little bit beyond what this scope is,
Okay.
but that's
Did you have a picture you wanted to describe about the 71 to 74?
well,
was
this
his
is
first
75. This is
75,
This is
okay.
This is after that handmade clay wheel board
Okay.
that transitioned into the store-bought Woolworth board that was ball bearinged and a urethane wheel.
Okay.
So, but that's the
enclosed bearings.
pre-enclosed bearings.
Right.
Yeah, we were loading
Seals,
bearings.
excuse me.
Yeah, we were
Okay.
loading bearings.
And by the way, we're looking at these photos. We know on the video you can't necessarily see it, and on our Instagrams and Facebooks and all that, we're going to try to get some of these pictures, photos. We're going to try to see if we can get them uploaded and all those things that we can try to follow along. It's quite a task of doing that, but we're going to do our best and continue. So what do you got there?
But this crew, the 71 to 74, you know, eventually segued into this 74, 75 crew.
Are they called the crew? Because in the photo, I see
were
everybody
just
wearing crew socks.
Pretty much.
Pulled all the way up with the
And
stripes.
check out those shorts.
You better be
matter of fact, he
looking to
didn't-
make sure nothing's sticking out of them shorts.
As a matter of fact, he
The
didn't even
grape
have
smugglers.
The grape
he
smugglers.
doesn't even have shorts on. He's like a Ken doll.
It's all smooth down there. What are those tan pants that meet shorts that meet?
basically, yeah.
So it's a kid. He has no shirt and he's got a tan short, so it looks like he's naked and has no junk.
Yeah, basically. So that was it.
And who are those guys?
That's myself, the Rodriguezes, Danny and Richard, and then that's my little brother right there.
Okay, and all four of those guys skated. All four.
All four of us
And then you've
skated.
got a
That's where
crew
it
just
started.
below that. You're on the side. You're sitting on a curb outside of some houses.
That would be Tim Litzman.
Oh shit. Okay.
Tim Litzman. There's Alvin Cooper,
Alvin Cooper. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Richard Rodriguez,
Richard.
which is that kid right there.
In that first photo.
And
Okay.
he was always like writing / our photographer.
Okay.
You know, whatever photography that we can get out. And then I'm not really sure who that is, but that's pretty much the crew, along with a couple other guys.
Right. At that point, the crew wasn't much as far as sizable, but you had.
We had our handful, but we were all bangers.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
You know,
All right.
I mean, we can all kind of put up.
Booger was a banger. I like that. And by the way, the cool thing, these photos for all you OGs or those youngins that aren't, these are the photos that have the little rounded edges that you got from the Kodak when you went and picked up your developed film kind of stuff. So the
Fox
way,
photo.
yeah, the Fox photo, the way you used to have a little kiosk that was about the size of this kitchen that you could drive up and pick your photos up, and so
Look like a snow cone hut.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's it.
we have to take digital photos or something to get those photos, but that is great. We love everybody pulling out the shoebox. So at that point in 71, 74, you're getting into teens or almost to teens, etc.
yeah.
And then you mentioned your early high school influence is 74, 75. So you would have gotten out of 13 and gone into, or no, you've been in 13,
Seventh
14.
grade. Yeah,
Okay.
seventh grade was 74, 75. And I remember, obviously there was lunch break. We went to a private Catholic school. So they allowed us to bring our boards to school. Well, I didn't have a board at that point, but that's when I was really introduced into, again, loose ball bearing and but urethane wheels. And I remember one of my best friends, Ken Froney, he had a Bain, Chicago's, and Cadillacs, that typical setup that was in that particular era. And that board was beautiful. And I was like, I wish I had the money. I was a poor kid. My mom and dad pretty much lived hand to mouth. I had to figure it out. I had to figure out how to get money into my pocket so I can go get a plastic, what was it called? A plastic barefoot, not a barefoot. Yeah, barefoot.
Yeah.
It was like a red plastic molded board, kind of like pre-GT.
Banana
kind of
board.
thing. A banana board. In so few words. Loose ball bearing, urethane wheels, bought it from the skateboard shop. And Kenny Tyson, you're seeing that guy's name pop up a lot around here.
Yeah,
huge collector now.
Yeah.
And KT, we called him Kenny Tie Stick.
Because
why?
tie stick.
Yeah.
Explain what tie stick. Well, you're not a.
No, I wasn't.
Could you explain tie stick, Carjack? You're not sure.
I'm going to assume that's a drug
weed.
reference.
It's a form of weed, but it's hash wrapped in, I don't know. It was a thing
was very
back then.
highly potent.
It was a very high potent back then. That was a thing. So
KT.
So curious, when you're talking this 71, 74, 74, 75 time frame, you're talking about you're getting the wheels, you're able to skate your friends' boards or whatever in between lunch breaks and all that thing. Was the intention to just roll? Was it to try to hang 10? Was it to try to carve and put your hand down and get surf moves? What was going on? Because at this point, you were probably only hearing things either via the radio or any potential publication that would have come out.
We were seeing the first skateboarders at that point.
Okay.
After they
California
started putting them
or
back
media
into
stuff.
publication.
Okay.
California media, yeah.
Because this is before 77, which was when Skateboarder Magazine is. We're talking 74, 75.
74, 75.
This is just as they were about to start up. So you didn't have that.
This is Lords of Dogtown days.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to something about that. That's the Rip City thing. So 74. So what do you remember about what you guys were trying to do or what you were progressing?
It was lunchtime. It was about impressing. And it was the girls that hang out.
Ladies.
The girls that hang out. And I wasn't a ladies' man, not at all. I was super quiet. But it was like, there was the cheerleaders. And they were out there.
I've seen pictures of you as a young man. You're a
I don't know
foxy
about
dude.
that.
So what were the tricks that impressed? Was it 360s?
I think they were
doing
maneuvers,
daffies?
and they were
kinda-
maneuvers. They weren't called tricks yet, right?
Right.
They were
That's why I'm
maneuvers.
asking.
Okay.
It would have been probably more surfy type maneuvers where you'd go around the palm tree at the end of the sidewalk outside the cafeteria, and you get as low as you could and turn as quick, so you may actually go a little bit more Bert style, right?
Right, but it's like you're trying to duck into a wave, kind of a feeling.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd make and it was kind of like just a big track for us, But then in between, there'd be a point when Kenny Kenny was pretty progressive, and he was
And
a
that's
lady.
Kenny Tyson, a.k.a. Ken Tystick.
Yeah, and he was pretty progressive, and he was a ladies' man,
Ooh.
And so it was all about nose wheelies.
Okay, now that's a
Nose wheelies.
trick.
Yeah.
Nose wheelies at that point.
Nose
That's
wheelie
pretty
or
like
a
a
360.
G-turn, or like both feet.
Yeah, was
on
it
the-
both feet?
Like
So hang
hang
10.
10,
Yep.
hang 10 wheelies. Okay.
Hang 10. And then if you can rip off a 360 front side or back side, or maybe even get 2 or 3 in, then you're impressing the
Right.
cheerleaders.
And it's crazy, kind of. I mean, I guess it just nobody thought about it, that team, but nobody was like picking up their board and flipping it and dropping it back down or taking their foot off of it. There was nothing that anybody was even trying at that point of that stuff. It was all still surf influenced and trying to emulate.
All surf influenced. And so
This is when Daniel Gesmer would have been king of the world.
we
Daniel Gesmer, you'll need to clarify that, Carjack,
that's
for those of those.
He's the guy, if any of you remember from the Powell video, who was basically doing ballet on a skateboard and talking about how skateboarding,
remember
the
that,
essence of
Carjack.
skateboarding is turning. He does slalom racing these days.
What video was that in? That was in one.
Ban this or propaganda. One of the later Powell videos from the
And
late
his name
80s.
was?
Daniel Gesmer.
Gesmer.
He's a slalom racer and downhiller now, and
Okay,
he's super good.
Oh, well, yeah. No heckling that, but it's funny that you bring up that reference.
I'm just saying, if you weren't doing tricks, not stepping off the board, not popping ollies, and it was all about carving, flowing, doing nose wheelies and stuff, that guy would have smoked everyone.
All right. I love this outline that you put in. Before we get into this next step, at this point, how did two things. One is how your parents felt about it. And the second thing was, I get the whole not having money, because Jimmy tells a story about renting a surfboard for 25 cents. And that was a little bit of tough. And then he went and bought the skates. And then one was $2.95 and one was $3.95, and he couldn't afford the extra $1. So we get that kind of time frame. What were your parents thinking of you not just using a toy, but starting to talk about it and want to be around it?
Well, obviously, I came from, a latchkey kind of situation, being Italian and Catholic and all this and that. My mom wouldn't let me out the doors, so we had to be somewhat homebound or ride right across the street at the Rodriguez's on their little flat section of payment, or we would go to the high school, which was across the street in my teenage years. And then that's where we would ride. So to the extent where mom and dad allowed me to build ramp number 1 in the yard.
Ooh, okay. So is your next thing before you get in the mid 70 spots and banked ramps? Is this what you're referring to?
That's it.
Okay, so his third outline point is the mid 70 spots and banked ramp 75, 76. So details.
So if we're looking at like Galveston's flat, we don't have a lot of contour to the island. And this is before we're thinking of pools. We're seeing pool shots in the magazines, but if you drain a pool on the island, they pop out like immediately.
Oh, the
water,
weight.
The water table is just so low, you may have a pool drain for like a day or two. So what we would basically do is that there was a physician's clinic 4 blocks away from my house, and it had a bank. They had a upper raised drive-through for a drive-through window to pick up prescriptions.
I've seen
and
that
so
kind of
forth.
construction. Yep.
And there was sorry about that. There was a bank built alongside of it, so you can only go north and south.
Right.
Couldn't go head on it, but then you can do carves.
You can maybe hit two
You
up
can-
and down
you can
on the
get
bank or
2,
something
3
like that.
bank carves into it, and that was it. And that was again like pre-Logan era. So 74, 75, 75.
So you go from this flat area that you found that you were rolling around and trying to do the surf maneuvers around the trees and that sort of thing to the bank ramps. And then like that, then all of a sudden you're saying, oh, wait a minute. Because here's this funny thing, you know, they talk about the age of street skating and stuff, but I mean, technically street skating, that was street skating. It wasn't the same as what evolved to, but you're basically finding constructed businesses or infrastructure that ironically, I don't know if ironic's the right word, but works for skateboarding perfectly.
Yeah. Another location on the island was El Chico's.
I've skated that.
It was like a loading dock behind the old restaurant.
I have a photo of our friend Jonathan the Child doing a nose grab tail stall at the little parking block
That's right. We put a parking block on the very top.
So it's basically a loading dock where the asphalt parking lot dips down, and naturally where the lot is, then there's two raised banks on either side of it, so you can almost skate it like a ditch, almost.
Yeah, it's kind of like an oversized curb cut.
And is it the back of a building, the back of a the El Chico's restaurant or something?
El Chico's restaurant. It was in the very back.
Is that still there?
It is still there, but it's all cordoned off by, paid parking for UTMB. It's still there.
Yeah.
And then the one that came up most recently, which was the side of the 51st Street Bridge, you saw that Bob actually went back and revisited.
Bob Fox went and skated, and that is basically an embankment that runs along as the freeway tapers up or whatever.
It's called the 51st Street Aqueduct. It's the Judge Smith Aqueduct that leads over to Pelican Island, where Texas A&M University is over there.
Okay.
Which is an offshoot of A&M and College Station. We have maritime and marine biology.
Right. And you have the University of Texas UTMB program.
So those were the three banks.
Okay.
That was, again, pre-sealed bearing days.
Pre-sealed bearing days. Yeah. All right. Okay, and that's what your reference was there, because there's another spot that we skate a lot, but that was a lot later, I think, and that was the Wendy's on the seawall. The back drive-up parking lot has a big bank that we used to skate, but I don't know if that was...
Tim Litzman loved that spot.
So that's been there for a while. It wasn't a Wendy's, I'm guessing, originally.
It was a Wendy's.
Oh, really?
It was
originally?
a Wendy's parking lot, yeah. Again, like a major, oversized curb cut.
Okay. Curb cut. All right.
The one that I remember was at right by Colonel Bubby's on the Strand.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
And
that was like one of the best curb cuts I've ever seen.
It was basically topped off. It was like a little small volcano.
Yeah, it was like two back to back, and you could try to clear the deck.
I never skated the Strand.
Oh, I used to go hit that in high school. It was that, and then where the Pleasure Pier is now. When that was that the flagship? Or
yes.
It was the flagship.
Yeah. So.
There
was the long curve
at the flagship,
that came down from the front.
Down slides on that,
and it was like over 100 feet. Like,
and it was wide. It was wider than a regular curb. It was almost double wide, but you could get your whole board on it and be stable
on both sides.
It's like the very famous curb that everybody's skating at the parking garage in California these days. They're doing the big board slide that ends in the red. Yeah. It's been on a bunch of Instagram. It's kind of like similar like that. Yeah. So
those were the two spots that I really liked in Galveston, was the curb there at the flagship, and then the curb cut at Colonel Bubby's, because that was like a launch ramp.
Yeah. Now there was a few spots along the seawall with some either monuments or there was and then they had those weird like tiny little parking curbs off to the side. So there was always stuff to skate on. I mean, the seawall in Galveston is a traditional, you skate up and down, you bike up and down, you do whatever the case is. But that was also a place where if you went to Galveston, that was kind of more checking out what was going on and who was around, and maybe you found some stuff to show off or whatever the case was, right? And that was back then too, because
that's it.
Obviously,
all of those little locations.
Now, you mentioned the Red South Side and the Red Bull thing that they do every year, this year was a little bit more of a long rail and stuff, but last year they went down the ramp to the big transition. Was that transition there in those years we're talking about, 71, 74?
No.
The seawall transition? That wasn't there yet.
We would ride it without having them basically throw in some crete, to make it happen.
But I'm saying is that seawall, was that transition that's in that down, there's that walk down ramp, and then there's that big transition wall that the seawall was. That was there at that parent.
That was there.
You guys
been
had
there since
to be
like 1905.
Right.
Yeah.
So you guys had to be eyeballing that, right?
Yeah, we were.
Okay.
Yeah. We always thought it was like a natural quarter pipe.
But you never skated because it's really hard without the DIY they've done.
I tell you what, Tim Litzman would skate anything, and I wouldn't ride it, but Tim would. And then, could you really get a grind on it, or could you get into any type of trick?
You couldn't get speed, but maybe
speed, and then it's the wrong direction.
Yeah,
depending on what footage. Yeah, right.
So but Tim wrote all that stuff.
Right.
So as far as like my era, he was the all-round guy that would hit all those spots.
And Tim's coming up. Actually, Tim was supposed to try to come through Austin recently and had some things he had to take care of, so we're postponing that. But Tim is a name that comes up, and he's a Galveston native, and
he was my nemesis.
Was this like in Austin? There was John Now was the North Austin guy, and Kenny Payton was the South Austin guy. They're friends, but there was always the North South. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Galveston was in probably two different factions.
Okay,
and this is documented because I've got a.
Is this in the 75, 76, 77? No. A little later than that.
This gets into late 70s.
Okay, still all right.
So East End guys were Wolfpack. The West End guys were Cowtown because there was more pasture land out there.
Yep.
Right?
Jimmy mentioned a similar thing in Corpus in his episode where the guys, he talked about the ditch where the guy took a shit in the ditch. And he talked about the guys on that end of town. And the guys, in Austin, Kenny Payton talks about the Austin Central guys that were in the main part of town. And then he talked about the Cedar Choppers, which were the guys that lived west of Austin.
Yeah, or south.
South and west of Austin. And they were the Cedar Choppers. So it's so rad and funny. In these days, this is how you guys differentiate your cliques, or I guess it all comes back from the 50s Fonz days. I don't know, but you had what were they again? They were the
Wolfpack was east, and Cowtown was which would have been west.
Now wait, West End. Which was Stuart Beach? Is which end?
Anything past 61st is considered west at that point in time west. And
going towards Corpus and all that area, right?
Going towards
that direction. Surfside, right? Direct. Okay, yeah.
So those are the little bit more affluent kids that had surfboards and skateboards. And they had a little bit more money out that way. So
that was the Wolfpack,
Cowtown.
Oh, that was the Cowtown.
That was Cowtown.
Wolfpack. What did the Wolfpack? They were more gritty.
They were gritty, and it's like you had to have permission to go to their ramp. I had my ramp, which I never saw their ramp until I got an invite. And it's like, Cram, if you're going to come and ride here, you got to do this. And so that's a whole other story.
We'll get to that, I think, because we're about to get kind of into that now. Were they calling you Cram? Was Boog not?
There were some that would say Boog or Booger, and then there were some that would say Cram.
Cram. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cramming in a lot of stuff here in this episode. Thank you guys. We see some smiles from those looking on. We appreciate that. We're glad everybody's enjoying. I am for sure. Now I'm going to move through this a little bit. So then you get into the previously mentioned Sunrise Surf Shop and then Kyle contest, but spelled Kile contest.
That's it.
Go through those.
Radio station.
And this is in numeric order. I mean, this is in year.
This is your
order.
Full linear time frame right here.
Okay.
So Sunrise was again in it basically because they were the core shop at that point in time. There were other stores that were on the island. But Robbie was really into it. And Robbie is a very church-going guy, but he never got on a soapbox and preached or anything of the sort. But he put his money. Robbie Robison was the owner of Sunrise.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Robbie Robison. And his brother Alvin hired me in the spring of 80. And because I was a shop rat. I basically hung around so much, it's like they put me to work.
Right.
And so I went to work for Spring Break Forward for the next 4.5, 5 years.
And that was the only shop at the time, mostly in Galveston.
Well, there was Ocean Magic.
I don't remember that.
There was Island Surf Shop.
Okay.
And then there was Sunrise, and Sunrise had two locations. So 61st Street, which at some point in time burned down, which left 47th on the seawall. And that's where I worked at. But then it's a very long chronicling of the Sunrise story, but he would produce contests. And so there would be Galvez Mall. Then there was like a freestyle / bank contest behind the mall.
Okay.
And then
using the parking lot. and all
Using
that.
the
Because I
parking
know
lot.
there was a big parking lot next to Sunrise. I thought it was an old Kroger or an old
that's
state,
right.
But
True.
he couldn't use that parking lot,
Did
right?
demo there.
Oh,
we
did?
did
Okay.
demos there and stuff like that.
Okay. And what were when you say at that time, we're still early 70s. So demos were not on obstacles except for banks.
Late 70s.
Okay, late 70s,
Now
but
we're about the late 70s.
What were the obstacles or was it just a
bank.
flat parking lot?
It was a bank.
Okay.
It was just a big built bank that was probably 16 wide by 8 or 9 feet tall, and it was just part of like, you just did a bank maneuver off of it and then you did freestyle.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, going back to your question, bank freestyle.
Right.
It was kind of incorporating, it's almost an early way of looking at it as it's almost like street style that was segueing in the 80s.
Right. Early on.
Right?
And so Texas was on the forefront of street style.
Yeah. So that would have been late 70s.
Okay. Looks like for the last few minutes, if you're watching, it looks like Carjack's searching for some spot. I'm not sure he's found it. Okay. He's investigating something. We're watching him. We don't know. But we thought it was a spot that we were talking about. We'll figure it out. All right. Moving on with the Kyle contests.
Yeah. So KILE was like a sponsor of Surf.
Oh, is that a radio station?
It was a radio station. Yeah.
Oh, KILE.
Yeah, KILE was like a local radio station. There were two. There was KGBC, which was based on Pelican Island side, and then KILE was a little bit more closer to the beach and where Pleasure Pier is now.
And they ran contests.
And
were they
helped
called
sponsor-
contests? Were there like rankings and okay?
I don't want to say rankings or anything of the sort, but it was like a vehicle to promote the contests locally.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Would this have been at the park at Stewart Beach, or was that not up yet?
No,
we're
this
not
still
quite
Stewart
there
Beach
yet.
was 86, 87.
Because I have a question coming up in the next couple bullet points. So, but okay, so KILE contest, and they were basically an entity that liked the fad or what was going on, and they were trying to sponsor and promote it.
Yeah,
And-
they were integral in its promotion.
okay, and so those were events that you're doing, and that was again late 70s.
Yeah.
And then your next point is the island half pipes and the introduction of flat bottom. So
Yeah.
let's start with the first half and island half pipes. And these are half pipes, no flat bottom. We're going to get into the flat bottom part because we also talked about the Mike McGill, Florida thing, et cetera. So before we get to that, what island half pipes were there that early?
Well, here
because
again,
we're 77, we're pre Holly
77.
Hills.
Pre-Holly
Oh,
Hills.
no, wait. Holly Hills was
Holly Hills
76.
76.
So this is
76.
just
So-
after the introduction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
76.
well, then that's a good question before we get into island half pipes. How did or when did you remember hearing about Holly Hills? Because it's right up the
It
coast.
was through the magazine because I remember
You didn't hear
seeing
about it through word of mouth.
No.
Oh, wow.
We saw
That's
it.
crazy.
I saw it in the magazine.
Okay.
So
And you're
there
like,
was
holy shit, there's a park 3 miles up the way.
How did we know about Skateboard City, the magazine?
Right.
We just learned of it by seeing the mentions. Texas, where's I can go
But the
see that.
skate shops, the Sunrise surf shops, they didn't have, like, nobody was sending flyers or putting, that's
No.
crazy that
No.
you found out about. Okay.
No, we were massive. Sunrise was massive.
But nobody was putting in like, hey, have you been up to Corpus Christi yet or whatever? You had to find out from a magazine. To me, that seems a little
word
crazy.
of mouth. Yeah, smoke signals, right? I mean, there was no way to communicate amongst the masses.
Okay,
at that
so then
point.
that's going on, and you didn't have it before the Island Half Pipes. You had not gone to Holly Hills.
Never.
Did you ever skate Holly Hills?
Never.
Okay, so you never even got to that, which was in this time frame, which
Yeah.
is crazy. Again, economy may not have been able to afford it, couldn't get out there. Who has a car? Any of those variety of things.
Latchkey kid.
Latchkey kids. So then what did you have on the island as far as half pipes?
So I always heard about the skyscraper. The skyscraper was this massive bank into a quarter pipe.
I've seen some recent footage of similar to that where kids are they go up, they take a turn, they get off, they just take turns.
It's a big roller coaster.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
You just repeat, hit, repeat, hit, repeat.
Was that at somebody's
It
backyard?
was, here again, I'll refer to the street numbers, 14th Street.
Okay.
So 14th Street, Wolf Pack. There was a crew of guys that were down there. Alvin Cooper, Robert Salinas, the Quintanillas, the Bests. And these are a lot of brothers that are down there. And the owner of the property, Tino Ybarra, he was probably the first I called them snow cone ramps because it looked like half of a snow cone.
Oh,
But
okay.
it was a bank quarter, and it led off of the second story of the house. So the second story of the house had a little balcony up there.
Again, the skaters in Texas were building ramps either against or utilizing the roofs of the fucking garages.
Yeah,
That's all right.
which is another ramp altogether. So it would start off on that first to second floor, a bank, and then you'd hit the quarter, and that thing was solid 4 to 5 foot of vert. and it led up to where the telephone and the electrical lines were. Hence, it was a skyscraper.
This is so crazy though, because you had not heard about what Jimmy and them were doing in those same years, rolling in off the roof and fucking 2 feet of vert. And meanwhile, down in Galveston, we're like, we don't even know about that, but fuck you, we're doing 4 feet of vert.
Yeah. No, we all had 4
Not
feet
really,
of vert.
but I mean, you know.
Yeah, no. All of our ramps had 4 feet of vert.
I mean, that's a sheet of plywood.
Yeah.
It's just right. They weren't doing a whole lot of
They
cutting.
didn't have to bend any further.
Right.
Pretty much.
And these were like
Which even gets better. So the last foot was plexiglass.
So you can see
So
through
you
it.
can see.
through it.
Yeah.
And then
Hey, man, you got-
oh, that's a cool shot from behind.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like 4 wheels out. You could get plexi. Did you get plexi? You got plexi.
Yeah. I made it to the plexiglass. Or there wasn't no steel coping at that point.
There's no coping,
What
right.
were we using?
If anything,
What were you using?
yeah, broomsticks.
Broomsticks.
Yeah, broomsticks.
That's like an inch
Yes.
and a half, maybe?
Yeah.
That's
Something
what
like
we call pinner coping.
Yeah.
pinner. Somebody rolled a pinner and put it on the coping.
Yeah. So that was the first one. I never
Now-
saw it, and I never got invites.
Okay, now Jimmy, it took me a while, and I should have mentioned this on the mentions. Oh, that's so rad. We'll show
This
you this
is not
picture.
the skyscraper.
Okay. Jimmy mentioned
The transitions.
Uh-huh.
it's crazy. We're looking at these photos as we go through. Jimmy mentioned that they built a ramp based on the Rampage ramp. And I had to
Okay.
look and I found what the Rampage ramp was, which I guess was apparently a traveling ramp. So is this like the Rampage ramp or that was a full half
This
pipe?
is pre-Rampage.
Rampage was a half pipe.
Rampage was a half pipe that I think was in around Southern California, San Diego.
There's
That sounds right.
they did
Sounds-
tours and
ish.
Yeah.
there's some ads and yeah, okay. All right. So these pictures
Maybe
that you're
North
showing
County.
us,
Yeah.
now this is your ramp?
This is my ramp. So what we did, and this is the same time frame. This is 77. How do I know? Because I went to my first concert, Steve Miller Band.
He's got a Steve Miller banjo.
I'm sorry.
Now is that
Yeah.
is this is front yard?
This is my front yard
Okay,
ramp.
so
This is ramp number 2.
If you're standing in a house and you're looking out the front porch, it's off to the right of the porch, and there is a ramp that leads from the porch all the way to the front door, and then there's a Camaro or something, a Chevelle, I don't know what that is.
Pontiac Le Mans.
Pontiac Le Mans there, and it's an
Starfire Blue.
an
Yeah.
8-foot wide ramp. Now this was again pre-transition, right? So you were bending the wood
We were
and
bending
putting
the
the
wood.
ramps, the cross braces to match what you could, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was no transition. There was no ramp plans. None of that had
That's
happened
how I
yet.
built my first quarter pipe as
Right,
well.
we did too. Yeah, I understand. But they were janky, way
Janky
more
as
janky
hell.
and kinked and etc. Okay, so this is an 8-foot wide, 4 feet of vert.
4 foot of vert.
How much? What transition? You don't even know. You don't
It
have a
would
transition.
It was probably like on 8-foot transitions.
Okay, so tight, and that
It was
was
tight.
no flat bottom.
Yes, flat bottom.
Okay, so let's back up
This
a little.
is where that's
so
where the flat
when you say
comes in.
island half pipes, was this? Are there half pipes with no flat bottom?
skyscraper, which basically we took the bank and then put it into half pipe.
Okay, so
then
you
it was a
bent
full
a
half.
bank, you bent it literally with the wood, and then nailed it to make it a transition. Okay, so then your half pipes. Now, we discussed in detail about the invention of flat bottom, and we feel that it came from Mike McGill in Florida. Am I
Well,
correct?
From Hollywood, Florida, which
Hollywood,
was the
Florida.
home park for McGill and Alan
Kona.
Gelfand.
Oh, not Kona, the Hollywood, Florida park. Right.
Hollywood. Like, it wasn't that McGill created the flat bottom, but that was
Somebody did it
that was
there.
possibly the first park that had flat bottom in the half pipe,
Okay.
and that's why McGill and Gelfand were able to start innovating
And we
tricks
think
that
that
people
was-
weren't doing yet because they had the more time to
Yeah.
think
And
and to
we're-
get the double pump.
That's what exactly our thought was, because they were going, Cram, there's too much bottom on here. You got to have a half pipe because that was 14th
No, wait,
Street.
say before they're talking about your ramp that was built.
My ramp.
Now, to get to the building of the ramp, that's what I'm curious about is that I'm trying to establish a timeline. I don't know if we know what time frame that Florida ramp was, but this had to have happened
77-ish.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
It had to be independent thinking. It had to be independent ingenuity. So where on earth did you think about making flat bottom? Where did that idea or thought come from?
Because we wanted a takeoff ramp.
Explain.
So there was a probably 3 foot wide takeoff ramp that
okay,
led into the flat. We didn't know how to do curves.
Okay, so
Right?
if you look at this ramp we're talking about, we're looking at the
Right.
back of it. It's 8 foot and it's going, you're looking at it long ways. And off to the right side of it on the transition that's nearest you, they have a plank that is off to the side that you would start on to get into the
So
ramp.
it's like a little runway
There's a
roll in.
runway rolling.
Yeah,
because nobody was dropping in.
No one was dropping in at that point.
Holy fucking!
Because how are you
That's
going to drop
fucking
in? There's
brilliant.
no deck.
I know,
it's a
but
2x6 with a broomstick
I'm
on
just-
it.
Right.
I've never seen that, which is why that's so cool because it's a
It was our
unique.
seat.
It's a 2x4 on edge with a broomstick on it.
So the reason that you had flat bottom was so that you could roll in and you didn't have to automatically go into.
Correct.
You gave yourself a little distance to get in. So the thought process was you needed the distance, and
Yes.
then you discovered the distance allowed you to skate the ramp
And had better
Better?
setup.
Yep.
Had better setup
time. Basically, time to mark this tape, John. I
Yeah.
don't know where to mark it, but mark it. Okay.
So 14th Street was still half pipe.
Half pipe, yes. Half pipe, no flat bottom. Pure
Which was-
half pipe.
Pure half pipe. And we still need setup time or something of the sort. So there's 14th Street.
Okay, and this picture right here, this picture right here of Boog, this is going to be a picture that we definitely put in. That is a freaking fantastic photo. One, you're a good looking dude.
Yeah.
Good looking dude.
I got
You've
hockey
got
hair.
a freaking mop of hair. Yeah, you look like you could throw your helmet off and start fighting with the dudes from what was that movie? The hockey movie where everybody fights.
Oh, Slapshot.
Slapshot.
Yeah.
Okay, so but then you've got leather workman gloves.
Oh, no, they're rectors.
Oh, those are Rector gloves.
Yeah,
Okay,
those are
Rector
Rector.
pads. You've got some kind of a Hobie looking stripe surf
Skateboarder magazine.
Skateboarder magazine. Fucking rad. Okay, and then you got a Town and Country sticker. I see. I can't tell from the distance.
It was a
It's more-
tunnel skateboard.
tunnel skateboard.
Tunnel
Okay,
skateboard. Laser trucks. Blue Crips.
and that was what year? That picture?
I know I was in 10th grade, so that had to have been 78.
10th grade. The dude in the picture looks like he could buy beer.
Yeah, no, I was in 10th grade.
Back then, you could buy beer in 10th grade.
Okay, that's definitely one of the pictures we're going to put up because I've had that tag. That's a freaking fantastic photo.
But you
look, what is that?
Well, we're using pipe now for coping, but this was a 16-foot wide ramp.
Okay.
Roll in, double
On either
roll-ins.
side so you could get speed. It was all about the speed.
It's all about speed.
Like everything back in those days, you had to work your way up to the speed.
Yeah.
You couldn't really, you couldn't just work your way like they do now. You
Right.
had to roll in, and that first wall was whatever
True.
you could get out of it.
And this was Rampage.
Yeah.
No flat bottom. When they say when we say a Rampage ramp, that's no flat bottom.
But
Okay.
going back to this,
Okay. Then the introduction of flat bottom, and you're saying
and then
1977.
77.
He's got a picture of he's got the top of the ramp. Is that the plexiglass?
That's the plexiglass.
The plexiglass, you can see it he's shooting it from the backside, look at the ramp, and then there is a freaking broomstick. I guess it's nailed or glued on the
nailed.
top that he's grinding. And why did you realize at that point, I guess 77, there was already the understanding of needing something
To release the wheel. As far
okay,
as the
explain.
broomstick?
I understand what you're saying, but release the wheel. What your thought there?
It was pre-conical years, and the wheels were pretty darn big at that point. And so we always knew in seeing like the pool photos that somehow or another it needed to be some type of coping.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right?
To roll over.
Yeah,
Right.
you need the bump. But
Because
we weren't
people were
doing-
hitting their trucks at that point, and this was before copers because you thought you were fucking your trucks up. And so pre that. This is good stuff.
I mean, these are like tracker Full.
That's a
Look
grind.
at that picture. So it's a 2x4, and on the top of the 2x4 that doesn't even extend the full 2x4 is a broomstick.
It's a broomstick.
So bad.
So we needed something to release the wheel.
William
because
Booger Broomstick Cram.
Yeah, so yeah.
when
Was
you're
that?
growing-
Do you know? Was that your idea? Where was the coping? Where's the broomstick in the metal pipe? Where did that come from? Do you know?
I have no idea. I mean, so many years
Somebody
ago.
down the street was doing it.
I don't know.
No,
but
no
when
one
I
down
was
the street.
when I
were.
was 13, I put broomstick coping on a ramp, and we didn't know.
Yeah, but when you're 13, that's a few more years past when he was 13.
Sure,
so I
but-
mean, at that point, okay.
13-year-old
that's right.
brains didn't change that much over that span of time.
Okay, so at this point, the introduction of flat bottom, you're saying 77.
77.
Man, I would love to get some confirmation from somebody out there or somebody about that, because I'd like to compare that to
You want to see if Hollywood, Florida was
Hollywood,
the same
Florida,
time?
and that sort of thing. So yes, I would love to have somebody look and try to get us some comparison, or even get a hold of Mike McGill or something. It's not about who did better or who's better or who got it first, but it is about trying to figure out the independent thinking and where that puts Texas in the status of everything we're trying to build about our history and what we were doing. And again, it continues to prove.
Are
Thank
you trying
Booger.
to figure out where Texas is in the international rankings?
Yes, we're trying to rank. Where is Texas ranked in the global skateboarding community? No, what I'm trying to figure is that it is another point of Texas being at the forefront of something without necessarily having the influence of knowing there's independent ideas, independent thinking. How do we make it happen? We were just like any other place, California, Maryland, Florida. We're working on enjoying this board and wheels and how we can make that experience better. And those points right there, Booger, are phenomenal towards the points we're trying to make.
I think it was just like a necessity thing, how to figure it out, and it was a freaking broomstick, It's like we can't pour coping, we can't get pull coping. We didn't think about putting pipe up until 80. Or at least 79, and then 80, all the ramps had like some sort of galvanized old, fence post.
Yeah.
Right.
But we didn't think about putting black steel up.
Was there a point where you guys took a piece of PVC, split it in half, and
We
nailed
did.
it up?
It was too slick.
Oh yeah. I mean, I did the same.
there's-
And you couldn't
photos.
hear
I
it.
know.
It was weird because
Yeah.
PVC, the one thing I remembered about it is I didn't like the fact that you couldn't hear. It just felt weird.
No, it
was a
sounded like having squeaky bushings in your truck.
Yeah.
old squeaky bushings. All right, so all these photos that you're flipping through, and again, we're going to try to dig through this. We're an hour and 45 minutes into this, but we knew
TBC.
this was going to be long. This may
Yes.
be 2 episodes, John, or
Yes.
maybe one long ass episode. We'll figure it out. Before we get to the next point here about the Galveston Skate Park, I have something I wanted to bring up that kind of reflects. So we talked a lot about the skate slopes contest in San Antonio. Were you there?
No, latchkey.
I'm
I'm going back to latchkey again.
San Antonio, you weren't there. Did you know about it?
Fully knew about
Okay.
it because that's when I thought that I'm going to be able to kind of show myself now.
And at this point, where did you consider yourself in the group of skaters as far as talent goes? As an honest question.
No.
Where did you feel like, I mean, obviously you were good, and Litzman and some of these guys were good.
Yeah. Well, let's proof in the pudding is when you look at the results. Go look.
I
at,
know. We're
Okay.
going to get to that. I just, in your mind, you knew that you guys were kind of leading the pack in a sense.
I felt like that the Galveston guys were leading the pack because if you look at it in overall points, Bobby Morrow would have basically taken everything from Northeast Skate Shows. Go add up all the placings. Then you have Tim that did really well
in several disciplines, correct?
Right? And then you had Alvin Cooper
Correct.
that did well. And then I believe that I was just behind probably Alvin and Tim. Bobby couldn't touch.
Okay.
Bobby, he
Singer was
it.
one of those top names, and several of those too.
Never saw Stuart Singer. Talked to Don and Elaine on the phone many times because they used to buy from Donnell Distributors. At
Right.
Sunrise.
Yeah.
So that's another story in Wormhole. But if you really looked at the bigger picture, and Kenny Carmona, I think, was actually a placed rider from Galveston in there. There was a lot of Galveston riders.
There was a lot of Galveston riders, and that's what we're trying to, again, determine, because we mentioned in that there was David Donaldson was not in the 69 category. John, Jeff Gibson were in the 13 to 15 category, and you would have been
in probably 18.
You would have been in the, what do they call it? The old man? They called it
older.
They called it something. I forget, the 19 and over, the Masters. It wasn't something like that. The old guys.
I think it was, because if it gets down to it, I think it was like 18 or 19 and over.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question, I'm going to bring up, this is my first point here. Several times during this podcast of the different episodes, I keep bringing up these theories about Texas. And this leads me to one that I think is interesting and I want to kind of dig into. And I think it fits right in with what we're talking about. This contest in San Antonio, all the pros come out from California to judge, and the raucous of the dudes throwing the chairs out the hotel window, and Stacy Peralta, all them being dreamy pros that are helping out, and all gentlemen and all that stuff. That whole story that we talked about in all that detail. Right. And in that story, they talk about the team points, and they add up points based on the teams, and then they also have team awards, etc.
Okay.
Now, you got the Wolf Pack and the other crew and that sort of thing, and you're in Galveston, and you guys are doing it, but nobody's doing the team thing.
No.
Nobody's a team thing. So here's my question, or here is my theory. I believe that Texas, debunked isn't the right word. I believe Texas ended the skateboard team scenario, and here's why I think that. In Texas, when you go to that San Antonio contest and the different teams placed, and we talked about the Texas skaters that won. Donnell Distribution got third or something like that, if I remember correctly, in all the team rankings.
We've got the magazine over there. So
and California guys are coming in, and you run it like this, and you run it like California, and you run this, and then in between they were doing trick tips and helping people with that, and they were also going, holy fuck, there are some dudes that rip here in Texas. They don't really talk about it that way in the way they rip, but they were definitely ripping and opening eyes. This is going to come up to the story a little bit later about Alec Gelfand that leads into that a little bit in a minute. But my point being is I believe that after the San Antonio Skate Slopes contest in 1978, what they called the Texas Champs, I believe that the team and the team points and the team scenario of being on a skate Hobie team or whatever ended. Now, I don't know if it ended in California that quick, but in Texas, I think we were saying, fuck you. We don't want part of that. We don't care about your teams and that, and it's more individual, and it keeps that core of skateboarding as an individual thing. It's not a team sport. And I believe that Texas basically said F you on that format, because I don't recall really seeing that format after that as far as Texas is concerned. So I believe that was the beginning of the death of skate teams. Thoughts?
It's also the beginning of when the skate parks started kind of going down too, just thereafter.
Right, but Texas had no part of skate teams like that. All dressed in uniforms, all dressed, right.
I don't think, if you looked at all there was no team uniform for all the Galveston guys.
No.
I mean, you basically showed up and it was about as...
Donnell would have had that distribution.
Stewart was kind of in that context.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is that when they got to Texas and the people saw what Texas... I think that's part of where Texas...
And
we didn't know it,
and
but
Brian Abel, because I remember he was wearing Hobie colors.
Okay.
So from that sort of standpoint, maybe that was at the very end. It's thought-provoking.
I don't think that anybody in Texas meant to hack it, but I think that that's a critical point where at that point, California came in and this is how it's done in the skate teams. And oh God, there's all these rad people and all that. And Texas was like, fuck you, we don't need the teams. It never became a thing, and it all became about this is how we do it in Texas.
That's a little ironic if that is the case, because GNS was pretty well known as one of the more
big teams. Sure, yeah.
They all wore the long sleeve yellow shirts. They all matched
red and gold.
And then you go fast forward into the mid to late 80s, and GNS was sponsoring a ton of skaters in Texas. That was, so many guys. It was Ken Fillion, Danny Webster, Dave Nielsen, Brian Pennington. Brett Roper was on GNS for a while. There's a lot of guys that got sponsored by GNS as
thank you,
their
Neil
first
Blender,
real sponsor. Yeah, probably so.
Probably Neil Blender.
But it was never the GNS skate team. Nobody looked anything like on those. It was the crew.
Well, and that's
crew as opposed to team.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this discussion and this point fun is that the way I started thinking about it, I'm like, there's no mention after that. There's no Texas teams. Texas didn't take on that California thing and keep going with it. Even when NSA and then we did Tassel, Texas Amateur Skateboarding, it was different from what California was doing. And it was a different stop because we wanted to do it on our own. So anyway,
to be honest,
I just think that's a critical
I'm kind of digging
point.
the idea of like those GNS long sleeve yellow shirts, but like with pearl snaps on them for the Texas.
For our future apparel maker and apparel's cut and sew sponsor, we need pearl snap cowboy style skate team.
That's kind of like
Shirts.
Del Mar Skate Ranch.
Yeah.
Johnny had a T-shirt or not a shirt, but a shirt like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean, I guess Johnny, we'll ask him, got involved in that team sports. But again, my point being is that I don't think it happened afterwards. And I think that's a critical Texas point. I just think it is. I think it's cool. I think it's something that we can hang our hat on and say, Texas said, fuck you, without everybody saying that and just said, we're not going to adopt it.
Yeah. No, I never really thought of it in that sort of sense. And yeah, why did all the team shirts all kind of disappear? Maybe it's just part of the fad at that point.
I don't think they disappeared in California as part of what I think of. Not quite yet. I think they were still doing the team stuff.
It might have had anything to do with the idea that in Texas, certainly in the late 70s, early 80s, team sports was basically football.
Right.
And if
back
you
to
were a
what we talked,
skateboarder, you were
fuck you.
the polar opposite. You're
right.
like, no. I started skateboarding because I don't like team sports.
Think of it also, too. A lot of those were like nylon mesh shirts and stuff like that, and they're hotter than hell in our climate.
Well, polyester was horrible back then, but you know.
Yeah, you had to wear like cotton.
Okay. I'm going to throw in a couple of
And
things.
rip the sleeves off.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw in some pop culture things.
Yeah, a shimmel.
A shimmel. I'm going to throw in some pop culture references that are in this time frame and just get your opinion if you remember or think about it or whatever. But as I continue to find these fun little things that are going on in our pop culture at the time, not necessarily in Texas, just thought I'd bring it up. 1978, the skateboard movie. Tony Alva, Leif Garrett. Do you remember?
Went to a drive-in theater and we snuck in. I think it was Tim Litzman or Cooper in the trunk of my car. We saw it at a movie theater.
It was a drive-in in Galveston?
It was a drive-in, no, in Texas City.
It was across the bay.
Which is right across the bridge into Texas.
We went and saw it at a drive-in.
And that was right around that time frame, so that would have been an influential thing. Because we talked about
we waited for that thing to come out.
Because one of our episodes, we talked about the Wonder Woman episode, the Chips episode, the Farrah Fawcett episode, and then the ABC Wide World of Sports and the Alva Hester slalom thing.
Saw them all.
And my other Texas thing that I believe that's where the fight between Mongo and regular push start happened because Alva pushed regular and Hester pushed Mongo. And then he fell on his face. Yeah. So I don't know, whatever. I still push Mongo.
It was the changing of the guard too.
Gotcha. So that was cool. So, okay. Also in 1978, and this was over in California, I guess what happened is that some of the skaters were going to keep doing these team sports and these series between the parks and the different crews, and other ones wanted to get paid and started Skateboard Mania. Skateboard Mania.
Okay.
Which was futuristics and lights and choreography. Right. And I think it was, I don't know, it was a few of the pro riders.
A few of the pros, including a Texas pro.
Oh my God, I did not know that. Who?
Vicky Vickers.
Oh, remind us of Vicky Vickers, because I know that name, but I can't tell you the story. So remind us of Vicky Vickers real quick.
Well, Vicky was from Houston.
Right.
And
okay, I knew that.
I remember she skated with one of the Galveston girls, Sally Stout. And Sally
Vicky Vickers and Sally Stout.
Man, they were
sound like Marvel Comics characters.
And they were
That's
cute.
So of course they were.
Cute. Dude,
any woman on a skateboard back in the 70s or 80s was cute because we didn't have that.
Did you guys?
I maintain any woman on a skateboard at any point in time.
Every amount of time.
Yeah, so she was in Skateboard Mania.
Okay, right.
Okay, so
which again was choreographed, futuristic. It was weird, flashy, David Bowie-esque type uniforms and stuff.
So it was like a traveling show.
It was a traveling show.
Ice Capades, kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But it was a futuristic. Like there was a theme. Like they went through things and probably little explosions.
But it
and
wasn't a
skateboard
skate
stuff
contest. It was a choreographed
act. And I guess the riders could get paid. There was a couple of big name pros.
Was this anything like
Dwayne Peters was one of them for sure.
Dwayne was in there.
Alba said no.
Was any of this stuff with the light up ramps, like the clown ramps?
Yes.
No, they were plexiglass or Lexan.
Okay, so it was clear.
It was clear
with lights
ramps, and
underneath.
they were lit up. Yeah.
Right.
Because the clown ramp originally was supposed to be a course that was like playing pinball on a skateboard, and you go over the little holes.
And
with
we
the
got to
lights.
talk about that.
Okay, we'll get to that. And we talked about Wide World of Sports.
Stop.
Oh, let's stop.
Okay. So those ramps ended up at Marina Del Rey Skate Park.
You're talking about the
turning point.
The turning point, yeah.
The turning point.
Skateboard Mania ramps.
Yeah.
Okay.
I rode it.
Okay. When it was.
You got to ride turning point?
Yep.
Oh,
Got
so that
to
was
ride
the
the
Now, turning point was.
It was the full pipe with the capsule end, and it was on a giant.
That
it was
thing?
all clear plexi. It was on a giant armature so that they could turn it. So it went from being a sideways full pipe to a tilted ramp.
right.
And
It's
you could make
basically the early version of the motorcycles that do the
wall of death.
the death thing.
It was on a pitch.
Yeah.
So you had to climb up a ladder to get inside of it. I'm kind of.
That is so
It
badass.
looks like a freaking futuristic ride from Astro World. Who's this doing a backside air?
I don't remember the guy, but he rode for Madrid.
But yeah, basically that was where Dwayne did the first loop.
These are the brown bowls. Okay, yeah, but that's where on one of those ramps. Yeah.
And this is Marina Del Rey?
That's Marina Del Rey.
Now the brown bulls. Okay? We're gonna have to get a picture of this. You guys should see this. I don't know if you call it coping, but it looks like it's been destroyed by trucks. But he's wearing copers. But it's just some crazy bowl with no lip. But it looks
That's
like
called
crusty.
the brown bowls. You ever see that first photo of Christian Asoy doing like some type of ollie or so?
Yeah, that was his home park.
That was his home park. As a matter of fact,
okay.
I'm kind of veering off course.
That's fine.
So
Tangent with Booger.
So we were Cooper, Tim, all of us were supposed to go to Southern California together for graduation, and everybody bailed out except for me. So I said, I got my ticket, I got my hotel. Piss off, I'm going.
And you were how old?
18.
19 when?
80.
So just before or after what we're talking about time frame.
So I get myself from Venice Beach to Marina Del Rey in a hotel, and I'm like, I'm skating there. And I had to kind of go through like a little bit of a Vato neighborhood, you know?
Yeah, they're only like a mile and a half, 2 miles apart, but you go through a little bit of a hood.
Yeah. And I'm like going, see this car coming toward me, and I see this navy blue Volvo, and I go, that was Stacy Peralta.
You knew his car?
I knew his car.
You were stalking.
And then I'm like going, I'm close.
Yeah.
So I walked in the stairs. First person behind the counter, Pops Asoy.
Yep.
He was working the counter.
Yeah, he worked
Pops
there.
Asoy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there, Jerry Valdez, Lance Mountain, Christian, Chris Miller killed it. Killed it.
And he would have been like 15 at that point or something. Yeah.
And then I said, I'm walking in, I'm going straight to the upper keyhole. So I want to go ride the upper keyhole, which is in the back of the property. And so I skated with this whole group of guys. Pat Clark was actually there.
Shit, yeah.
So I rode with Pat Clark and another cat. And then this little skinny kid comes in, you know, and I'm like going, he's riding a janky board. He's riding a Dogtown triplane with some trackers, copers, and roller skate wheels.
Yeah,
and
little
it was
wheels.
Loose. And I'm like going, who's that kid? And he's from San Diego. That's Tony Hawk, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
10 years old. I got a
Tony
picture
Hawk
in my
mention.
box at home somewhere. So, but yeah, that's my marina story.
That would have been out of his hood for him. That would have been like a weekend trip.
I think it may have been just after. Well, Circle Jerks played in the Dog Bowl.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's so rad.
They had played that weekend, and then I arrived.
Yeah, this is like 80.
This is 80.
Yeah.
This is 80. June Gloom.
It was like that same year was when Devo shot their Freedom of Choice video, and that was there.
That's it.
Yeah.
So curious, you mentioned Stacey Paul, just off tangent here. Would you happen to know what Stacey's role was in the Farrah Fawcett show? Because he was involved in that, and we were thinking there was another woman who was named that we think was the stunt double for Farrah, but then there's a shot of somebody with long hair skating pretty fast. It's got to be Stacey, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Wasn't there
you don't
one
know.
where
You don't
Stacey skates down the sidewalk and he does a quick little 360 or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know which
As
show that
Farrah
was.
Fawcett, you
Is
mean? I don't know.
No, not as Farrah Fawcett.
He
but-
was on the crew when that happened. Anyway, I just if you knew
Well,
that,
he was
you
also
know,
in the
obviously.
Chips episode. It could have been a different show.
Yeah,
Could've been some-
Chip's episode was Reseda.
Yeah. It's a different spot.
So my last pop culture that you may or may not have been seeing there in Galveston, were you checking out Mellow Cat at that point?
I saw it and I thought it was stupid.
Mellow Cat, which was a skateboard comic back in the day. So
I wasn't too much into comics.
yeah, I just didn't know. I was just trying to point out things that might have been influencing from things that we were seeing in pop culture, and if that was something that came up, etc.
I thought
But
that was a waste of paper. It's like put some more images in and stuff like that.
yeah.
I
You want to
didn't
see
quite get
skating
that.
at that?
Well,
yeah.
speaking of pop culture, late 70s, Galveston, did you ever frequent the Balinese room?
Oh,
No, but I had a girlfriend that worked there as a cigarette girl.
Oh my God.
that's the girl that,
So did she ever-
wears the tray with
Yeah.
the strap around her neck and
Yeah.
goes around and sells the
Yeah.
cigarettes and
Her-
mouthwash,
Does she
whatever.
have stories about Billy Gibbons coming in there on the regs?
No, but Billy Gibbons in 13th floor. Hold on,
Rocky?
Moving Sidewalks.
Moving Sidewalks, yeah.
Billy
That was
Gibbons
Billy's
Robbie
Rocky Erickson.
Rocky Erickson.
Billy
Which I had
Gibbons
to
from
give
the
up.
ZZ Top,
which
by the
I
way.
had to give up
Yeah.
my dressing room for
Oh, really?
Rocky. Oh, giving it up for Rocky Erickson?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I had it.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
But ZZ Top Moving Sidewalks played for our high school prom.
What? You got
Fucking no
So
way.
Moving Sidewalks was Billy Gibbons' band before ZZ Top.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's
And-
alright.
And probably right around that same time frame that they had played at the Balinese.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the band that
Early 70s.
Yeah, that was the band that the last year that he was alive, and like late 70, early 71, Jimi Hendrix was being interviewed by some, Rolling Stone or somebody, and the guy opened the interview with saying, well, how does it feel to be the greatest guitar player alive? And he said, I don't know, you should ask this cat from Houston named Billy
Right.
Gibbons. He's the best guitar player on
Yeah.
earth.
Yeah,
Wow.
they were touring together.
Yeah.
Cool story. All right, let's move on a little bit here. Keep this rolling. Galveston Skateboard Park, 1978 till 72.
82.
Is this 82? Excuse me. Is this the Stewart Beach Keyhole Bowl Park?
No.
Oh God,
No.
darn it.
So
Okay.
what park is this?
Explain-
Where was it? What did it look
Explain.
like?
Okay, so refer to the book.
So this is pre-Stewart Beach Park.
Yeah, Stewart Beach Park didn't happen until 86.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll
All
talk
right.
about
I
that
thought
in a
it
minute
was
then.
80s.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what was this?
You got
So-
the patch here.
Yeah,
Oh, that's rad.
So this patch was on the cap, and it was old school because it was like a green and white pinstriped cap,
Nice.
trucker cap.
yeah,
right.
it's GSP, Galveston Skate Park.
Galveston Skate Park.
And that almost looks like a Hobie kind of like little
Jacob surfboards.
surfboard.
It
Okay,
was
okay.
the diamond.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of funny because my Ohana logo has that same diamond. in it.
Right here.
Oh, all right,
I
bringing it back.
didn't think about that, but you just made me kind of realize.
Okay, that's what we're here for.
Okay, so here, when I was in, so what was that,
Those are
ninth
courses?
grade? I remember taking an article to school.
Is that a picture? Is that a drawing of sperms?
Pretty much?
Those are just snake runs
Skate-
into bowls.
Snake. It's an
Yeah.
outline drawing
Oh my
of a
God,
skate
that
park
is
that looks like a bunch of
killer
sperms.
looking.
It looks rad though.
So this was the article, April of 77, that they were going to break ground on the skate park. 85th and Seawall.
85th.
85th.
That's
which
Damn,
was
that's
way
almost out to
down.
Pirates Beach. That's way
no,
out.
no, not that far, halfways.
Yeah, halfway.
But it's 5 blocks away from the 91st Street fishing pier. Okay.
Yes.
So, which was another iconic spot.
Is that kind of where the tea kettle house was?
Wrong. No,
That's further?
The kettle was on 37th. And
Is that
Seawall.
before Jamaica Beach?
This is way before Jamaica.
Is that in that area where the Galveston Park and they have those weird cement structures that you could camp at?
Concrete structures.
Concrete. God damn it.
Way before that too. It would have
Okay.
been. It would have been in
Concrete. Damn it. Okay.
right, before the end of the seawall.
Oh, right as it
Before-
tapers off
Yeah,
almost.
end of the seawall is 103rd.
Okay. Okay.
So this was 85th.
Okay.
So this came out in the paper, and I
Was there a water park right next to that and like an artificial hill
Yes.
built? Yes, I know exactly where
it
that
was.
was.
Right by Ciarama.
I grew up going to that water park. This is a photo of the dirt work.
So this is the dirt work right here.
That is awesome.
So yeah,
Look at that. Oh, we're going to have to do a picture of that.
I wanted this place built so badly. I went ahead and put in, hey, I need an application. I want to come and work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever
to be a build
get
crew.
it done. and I'm wheeling wheelbarrows of dirt.
Wait a minute. Were you one of the first
So you helped
skateboarders that helped build the skate park? Because we don't hear stories about that this early.
Galveston Park, yes.
That's
None of
awesome.
Jimmy and those guys.
You worked on the construction crew.
I worked the wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
That's working on the construction
Yeah,
crew.
if they needed like chunks of this, that, or whatever, it's like
So let me ask you this
That's how I
question.
got started in
Let
the
me ask
industry
you this
myself.
question, Boog.
right.
So in a previous episode, I talked to Carjack about his concrete
Yes.
experience and the huge amount of concrete they used for these structures and how they were built, etc. Now there's all kinds of rebar and tied out and etc. When I look at this photo and you've got these carved out mountain or hills and all that, tell us, what were they doing to Were they doing any kind of grid of metal, or were they just floating concrete everywhere?
No. This is like pre-rebar and any type of wire mesh that went down.
Okay.
But, I mean, this is pretty rudimentary. This is the
But
beginning.
how are they pouring? So they built these, they dug out these.
Shot it.
Yeah.
So they dig out these runs.
That doesn't look dug out. That looks built up.
Built
to me.
up.
It is built up. Yeah.
And then
That was
did
like a
it, and then
flat plane, and they built up the berm.
They still had crews smoothing it out and doing that whole thing.
Remember the seawall. Let's look at it this way. Here's your water. There's the seawall.
Which is 12 feet,
17 feet.
17 feet.
17
okay, from
feet.
beach to seawall top.
Seawall. Then you have Seawall Boulevard, and then you have properties that begin. So this began at the very top where the pro shop is at 17 feet.
And then everything goes downhill.
And then everything slopes downhill. So
Towards
they
the
had
bay.
to truck in boatloads of dirt.
Holy shit.
So anything that was in fill all the way to the back of the property, it's probably
That was all
close
trucked
to
in.
about 12 feet. Because I remember there was a big brick cinder block wall behind
like
it.
a retaining wall.
And you couldn't climb it from the back.
Right.
You
Way
couldn't
too
because
tall.
when it was closed, we had to go in from the sides.
Wow.
So there was no way you can get in from the back.
Man, that is a great shot and gives you such a crazy perspective of what was going. And the thing is that even though, like Carjack mentions, the skate parks now are built way better. I wouldn't give my left foot, but probably to skate these things, to go back and ride these parks that we see photos of and the surf ability, just the things that we could do.
Everything was super surfy, super carvy, but everything
Rollovers.
you're
and
going downhill.
Yeah.
And everything is at speed.
Yep.
Everything is
it
at
taught
speed.
you to have balls.
And what's
really did.
What's the challenge to be able to pump your way back to the top?
And we could do that.
Yeah.
And we can do that. Yeah. You'd get a
Perfect
workout.
your tic-tacking and your pumping and all
Your
that.
carve
Yeah.
back up. You can get right back to where you started out. It was just that enough of slope where you had to really
So
kinda
that was
work hard.
78, which is
78.
when we had the flood of the parks after the 76, 77, and then the flood of parks all over the place.
Right.
And then it lasted till 82.
82.
So which it actually lasted,
Longer
I
than
don't know,
most.
longer than most as
But
far
it
as
was,
the...
it was closed for a good two and a half years.
Did you guys
So
still
basically,
skate
it was
Oh,
78
yeah.
to 80.
Yeah.
It closed. You rode it for free for 2 years, and then it got bulldozed.
That's it.
Was it a bust, or was it just they didn't care at that point? Because you're way at
It
the
was
end of the
It was a
seawall.
bust, but if you knew how to like work the system and you weren't a jerk, then the cops wouldn't play with you or anything like that.
Was it
Or-
a jump the fence
They
thing?
just tell you to leave.
Yeah, that you'd go in through an open cut in the fence, and then cops, you go slide down into the bowl, and you just lay there.
Yeah.
That's it, done.
Hide out.
But if you're smoking weed and you're doing this and you're
Then you're in
drinking and all
trouble.
that,
Yeah.
then you're got some issues.
Yeah.
So we knew not to take anything in there.
Right.
You know?
Save that for later.
Save it for later.
Okay, so
That's for the backyard ramp.
You wheelbarreled and worked at the park. So this is the first time we're talking to somebody that actually was a skater that got on the job site and helped build the park, and
True.
that's freaking rad.
Yep.
And then you skated the park, and then you skated the park after it ended.
Yeah.
Do you remember any in that time frame? Do you remember what developed? Fully. Okay, so give us just a quick snap of where you were at the start and what you developed.
Well, obviously,
or I say your crew.
on my ramp, I mean, when I'm riding a GNS Team Rider Fiberflex, learning how to frontside grind and frontside air was really big deal. Rock walls, things of that nature. So, but as it progressed, and obviously this is right before we went to the park. So we were riding banks, right? Bank ramps. And then
It's like a bank quarter pipe.
again on a GNS Fiberflex. So that was 77.
I like how the top of the bowl just has a fence coming right out of the.
Yeah,
I mean, you
that was
couldn't
real
rock and
fun.
roll
It's
at
not
that
even a
point
deck.
because it's not
No.
that far.
Rock and rolls weren't
You
in
couldn't
yet.
really stand on it or roll in.
No.
Rock and rolls were probably just
2
then
years
starting
away
to be.
from.
Yeah. They
2
weren't even
years.
invented yet.
Yeah, there was no.
Wow.
But we were doing lip slides.
Yes.
So everything was like front side lip slide, backside lip slide, like back Bert.
I was gonna say doing a lip slide would be more like the way you would do it on a wave surfing.
Fully.
It's a push to when your wheels go and then they slide over
Right.
onto.
Yeah.
It's more of a
Right.
slide as opposed to a
Right.
like a lip slide.
More than
Technically,
a
is an
modern
ollie
lip
to it, I
slide.
guess.
a
But
front disaster without having like Bert to do it on.
Yeah.
okay, man, these pictures are rad. So rad.
Obviously they're still riding oak boards, some of the older guys and stuff like that.
Still like 6, 7 inch boards wide, something like
easily.
that. Yeah.
Easily. Then eventually we get a little bit bigger in the boards, some pigs.
Pigs, and that's a front side
That's
air.
when you start getting air.
Yeah.
We're
And
okay with
then
stink
we're
bug.
figuring
It
out,
doesn't
like-
matter.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Me.
That's you.
Yeah. I didn't do very nice frontside airs.
That's okay. I push Mongo when I do stink bug airs, and I love layback airs. Fuck y'all.
When it was through legs, and eventually I can kind of go over the top of my rear knee,
Yeah.
but I couldn't go around.
I had the hardest time tucking my knee too.
I don't have very good flexibility then. But this was it was like a double hip.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the vert bowl. So first hip, and it ended up on that second hip, and then into a vert section back here.
That looks, and that's again it's like the sperm, meaning that there's these long trails and they had kind of little bold ends,
It
kind
looked
of
like a toilet bowl, like a pea trap.
Right.
It kind of looked like that. This was what we called the coping bowl, and it was supposed to be a half pipe, but man, it just didn't have like continuous flow. It was just like, okay, let's just blow it.
Again, construction was shoddy. They didn't realize that they're like, oh, they're roller boards. They can get over everything, not realizing that it would make you.
They probably didn't use forms. They probably cut the whole thing with
That's it.
freehand.
Freehand.
With Fresno trowels. or
Okay,
something.
this next page, just leave that right there. This next page leads to the next thing, and it's a photo of a big shape of Texas with a guitar player, and it says Texas with 2 X's. Texas World Music Festival 1978 at the Texas State Fairgrounds, which is the Cotton Bowl.
Right.
Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, Hart, Eddie Murray, Money, Journey, Van Halen, and it goes on and on. Rush. Oh my gosh.
Right.
What? Okay, so Texas Jam. That's your next point on this before we get out of the 70s here. What was the Texas Jam?
Well, my friend Greg Ruiz, love that guy to pieces because he was another one of the guys that was kind of like the neighborhood kids, but he was in the rich neighborhood, right? And then Paul Ware, another high school friend, we caught wind of this Texas Jam happening, and then I saw a skateboard demo. And
of course, we're talking Dallas, which is 5
talking about
hours.
Dallas.
5 hours at least.
5 hours
5 hours
away. And so Paul's dad drove us from Galveston. We got tickets. Drove us from Galveston.
They were probably $4
I was going to say,
each.
how did you get tickets? Is this all mail order?
No, Ticketmaster. You go wait in line at the grocery store, dude.
Grocery store.
Okay.
Or you went to
like getting tickets to
Sears.
Astroworld and stuff like
totally,
that. Okay.
Totally.
Yeah. So we got our tickets, and I'll never forget this. And when we were in their Suburban, right? Paul's dad's Suburban, and there wasn't a lot of space. For some reason or another, I was on the floor above the transition, and I sweat my freaking balls
Transmission.
off.
Yeah. You said transition, but you meant transmission.
Transmission.
Which is warm as hell.
It was hot. And if you go back and you start looking at what was happening this particular summer,
78.
This is when the heat wave was hitting Dallas.
Oh, so that was a brutal day.
It was brutal.
Yep.
So the ride up was brutal. But
they had a skateboard demo at this concert.
They did.
Okay, now go ahead.
So game on, we see the first band or two, and Van Halen shook.
Completely blew everybody's mind.
Was that only
Everybody
one
away.
album at that point?
Yeah, that was their first album.
Just
Came out in
found out.
78.
Okay.
Just come out, and it just like, you really got me in eruption, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't know who these guys were. They were on rented equipment. They had just flown in from like Japan. They lost their equipment. And so they just show up, and, Diamond Dave and all of his glitter, I'll never forget, a teal sequined jacket. And he was just he was rock star.
It was rock star.
And it's
Completely.
not like any of the other guys, And I said, well, I'm staying for these guys. But then as soon as Atlanta Rhythm section came on,
Let's go look at the skateboarding.
let's go look for the skate demo.
Yeah, exactly.
So we left the bowl, which was, I think they said it was like 110 on the floor.
Yeah, I can
And
see
they were
it.
hosing people, that I was like, man, I can't do this
Yep.
too much longer.
Yep.
And that was only at 11 o'clock in the morning. So then we walked
Wait,
around the
are
corner.
you saying Van Halen played at like 11 a.m.?
That's not very rock star
Yeah.
of them.
No, but that's how the big concerts like that in the 70s, they'd go all damn day. And so the Unknown Band plays first.
Yeah.
And all the stories of Van Halen when they first came out in 78, nobody saw him coming. I heard this story that Henry Rollins told about he and Ian Mackay bought tickets to go see Ted Nugent, who was like the big dude at the time.
Headliner, yeah.
And the opening band was this thing they'd never heard of called Van Halen. And he said they completely blew everybody away to where when Ted Nugent came out, people were still chanting Van Halen. And Ted was like, shut the hell up.
Same thing happened with Black Sabbath.
Yeah. So you were walking through, and then you found this.
So we
That's
go
the
outside.
ramp. Oh my God.
So there is
that the Pepsi ramp?
It said USA Parks on it.
But it's the
I think
plexiglass,
it's the plexiglass
no
Pepsi.
flat.
Yep, no flat.
Now, that's not the one that became Doug's.
No, there was several of those
There's
around.
a few
Who
of
knows
those.
what-
Right.
I think these kind of toured around a little bit. It could be in the Pepsi guys.
Yeah, and then it folds up into a trailer.
That's it.
And,
Like it looks like a big butterfly.
Yeah.
And drives onto the next
So
thing.
we went
And
around the
no
corner.
deck.
No flat bottom.
No flat. No deck.
Metal
8-foot
base.
tranny right to vert.
Right.
Yep.
And then again, I'm like going, man, crap. Yeah, these guys are pretty cool. I eventually figured out that is Barry McDaniels from Dallas.
Okay.
If anybody knew who Barry McDaniels
Not sure
is.
I know that name, but okay,
I
that's
skated
cool.
against him many times.
Okay.
So I eventually found out who he was.
God, in this bottom picture, he's doing a backside air, but it looks like he's pulling out a foot or two from the ramp.
Chris Stropel.
That's
Stropel?
Stropel.
That's
Nice.
Stropel.
Rad.
And look how many people are up on the balconies.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
checking
parking.
this
So
out.
this ramp is at the back. I'm
That's,
guessing
no,
a
that's
complex, and
the,
there's a
that's
parking.
the Cotton Bowl.
Oh, the Cotton Bowl.
Football
So
stadium.
when you walk up the ramps into the Cotton Bowl, people are all along the edges looking over a ramp. That's a fantastic photo.
Yep. So that's,
really is.
That's Stropel. And I'm assuming this is just after Oklahoma championships where Johnny got discovered.
Okay.
Because they would have been in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Time frame wise.
Right,
Right.
right.
And so who's that cat right there?
I can't even tell from the photo, but
Shogo.
that's Shogo.
Shogo
Oh,
Kubo.
I see the hair and the hairband.
And I
Man.
got the wrong picture, so this is going away. I got the good one at home.
Oh, yep.
So that's
So he's
Shogo
doing
there.
Shogo doing a frontside air. His hair is flailing. He's over the top of the ramp.
Right.
That is rad. So these demo was obviously California pros that came in. Well, I mean, you mentioned
I think
you mentioned
I'm
Stewart.
near positive. I think Stewart was there or Brian Abel.
Okay.
And you may want to double check with those guys, but that's Dennis Martinez right there. And Dennis Martinez.
Oh,
Wow. Okay.
So, that was the Texas Jam.
Man, that is crazy. So to tie the 70s into a knot, because we are going long, and that's okay. We knew this was going to be the case. 70s crew, Bobby Morrow, Ben Baxter, Alvin Cooper, Tim Litzman, Robert Salinas, Martin Meline, Quintanilla, Danny and Richard Rodriguez, J.B. Holmes, Mr. Ken Tyson, who we need to talk to at some point, Ricky Marquette, and Kenny Carmona. Carmona are all dudes that were shout-outs care of Booger in that time frame that were matching up with these photos. I have a question on time frame because there is this Alan Gelfand thing that we're going to mention. What year would that have been?
Of which?
When it would have been you and Phillips, Dan, and all those people together where Alan was at.
April of 81.
81. So we're not quite there yet. Okay, so 80s crew did want to bring up some people in Galveston. Bobby Quiroga, Jay Fabian, Marco Franco. I don't know these guys. Bobby Morrow, obviously, we know is somebody we need to figure out about. Danny Rodriguez and our very good friend, Bino. Bino Garcia, one of the legendary old school.
Our Caballero.
There's a way to put it. So, I mean, not necessarily because he's Hispanic.
Not Hispanic, it's just
but
because he was boosty.
he was boosty. He and his brother, I think, also
Big
Al skated.
Yeah.
And Bino has been around. He's been a Houston legend for a long time. And now he is doing such a cool job of taking old skateboards and turning them into Galveston sea shapes, like, crabs and
fishes, crabs, turtles.
And he's doing art shows, and it's all out of skateboard products. It's
true.
so rad. So big shout out and love to Bino and some other people. 80s crew. You can't necessarily you don't mention Bob Fox, but he was in Galveston at that point almost.
Bob actually kind of came to the table when he started going to school on the island. So that would have been early 90s.
A little bit later. It would have been earlier because he was supposed to go to Southwest Texas with me in 85, 86, 87. So he moved to Galveston instead. So it would have been 86, 87, something like that.
Latter half.
And then just a couple of more quick shout outs. We have Kim Cherry Holmes.
Oh, yeah, Kim.
And then her son, Heath Cherry Holmes, Ripper. So big shout out and love to him. He's still in the Galveston area.
Still in Galveston.
And so holding down the Galveston scene and that sort of thing. Okay, so then that's your 80s crew, and you've got there's some rabbit hole stuff you mentioned, and we'll go back over a little bit this in a minute, but I want to try to dig into this 80, 81, and when you started. Do you remember when you started entering contests?
It had to have been through the Galveston skate park era.
Okay.
So yeah, I was entering contests on the local level.
Okay, and you weren't doing the team thing like we talked about.
No. If at all anything, we were kind of underneath the Sunrise moniker.
Okay.
Because I worked at Sunrise.
So at the tail end, you still had a park in Galveston to 82, but you were seeing ramps built. Was there some, past the ramps you just showed us photos of, was there another ramp in between that was more of a vert ramp that was really getting...
That was it. We had
into the
vert
spring
ramp.
series time frame is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, pre-spring series, my ramp was it.
Okay.
The 14th Street had kind of pretty much gone by the wayside, and then there was little to no scene at that point. Bino's came in later.
Okay.
Bino's ramp came in later.
Okay. So there's a couple of contests and things where you're placing, and I'm seeing your name in some stuff, and I don't know if I don't have a list of them here exactly, but you were starting to place in contests, or you're starting to compete, and these contests were started. This was pre-Shut Up and Skate, getting to almost the spring series and the ramp, backyard ramp series and all that. And then this is the second point that I mentioned quite earlier that I wanted to bring up, and it has to do with Alan Gelfand. And our friend Al Coker sent this information from you mentioning that Al Coker knew a story about you being mentioned in Alan Gelfand's book. I guess it's somebody else's book authorized by Alan Gelfand called Ollie. Right?
Secret History of
Ollie. So this reference that I'm about to explain refers to something, I think, in Dallas, and it was a competition you went to.
Yeah.
That Alan Gelfand was there. Before I read this whole thing, can you remember or explain what that was or what was happening?
Sure. So Texas Spring Series of skateboarding, obviously was incepted by Jeff Newton. And Jeff and I spoke over the telephone, and I was selling Zorlak products at Sunrise. And hey, what do you think about this contest down in Galveston? And I'm like going, yeah, let's do it. Let's do this contest. And it was supposed to be a one-off, I think, at that point. So it was called like Easter Jam or something like that. And then it kind of progressed to where, hey, I think we can get a couple more cities that are involved in this. And second site would have been Austin, and then the third site would have been Dallas.
Is this the Austin where they have in front of Palmer Auditorium?
That's it.
And all that? Okay,
That's
all
it.
right. We're going to get to this in much more detail, but certainly. Okay.
Yeah, so there were the three contests, two of which were dated in March, beginning of the month, latter half of the month, and then eventually Dallas, which was called Zoo World.
Okay, and I remember hearing about that.
It was in a convention center. Which convention center, I'm not really sure, but somehow or another, Jeff got it put in as like a sideshow. And it was kind of to complement basically what was going on and what all the other activities and bands and things of that nature. So the ramp was basically put in, and that's where I met Alan.
And that was a contest.
It was a contest.
A contest event. And Alan, do you remember other California pros that were out there or other pros?
No. It was a Florida.
That's right. He's from Florida. Sorry. But,
from Florida. Dan, forget last name.
Okay.
But did the Walker crew come out or any of those dudes?
That was it.
No.
It was Texas. It was all Texas driven.
Okay.
And maybe someone from Oklahoma, but
right. Okay. So now I'm gonna go ahead and pull this expert. So this is from the book Ollie that Al sent over to me. Again, Al Coker up in Dallas.
And
Thank you.
I had no idea about this.
Had no idea that he was.
And I still
he was
have
mentioned.
no idea.
And I'm gonna read a little bit of this, and then you're probably gonna get pretty quickly what my thought is on it. Stop looking at my notes.
I can't.
But I only got a screenshot part of this page, and I'll read it real quick. It says the longtime accomplished Dan Murray and
That's who it was.
Texan Stuart Singer performed demos and served as judges for the skating contest. By the time the series reached Dallas, which was a series they're talking about, reached Dallas, it had grown significantly. And there were noteworthy Texas competitors. And I think when they say noteworthy, they were really toning down that there was fucking ripping going on in Texas. There was talent, including Dan Wilkes, Craig Johnson, William Booger Cram, Jeff Phillips, and Andrew Lopez. Booger is listed between Craig Johnson and Jeff Phillips. Holy shit. Holy fucking shit.
That's pretty darn cool.
That is, if you had a Mount Rushmore, that'd be some names on that Mount Rushmore.
I think I had my peak at that point.
Okay. So my point being is that included Dan Wilkes, Craig Johnson, Booger, Jeff Phillips, and Andrew Lopez. Phillips and Johnson hoisted Phillips and Johnson hoisted an impressive array of airs, inverted maneuvers on the top of the ramp, but the 12-year-old Lopez captured the crowd's heart by blasting fakey ollies that were simply astounding, particularly to those spectators who didn't know what was going on. And this is another time, just real quick, that we hear about Andrew Lopez, that just, he never, I guess, moved his skateboard career along, but he looked like he was one of the very top people. So again, Booger in here with all these names, and then it says, this gets to my point, I promise. The Texas Spring Series marked the end of Alan Gelfin's first-person influence on skateboarding. The talented Florida skater had inspired his peers and the new generation of skaters through his coverage in press and appearances at demos, and the ollie would live on. Texas and Texas skaters had some kind of play because they were so good in ending Alan Gelfin's notoriety, is kind of what they're saying.
Maybe not his notoriety.
He kind of like disappeared.
Right.
It's almost like, you ended on a high note.
Yeah.
Well,
then what happened to him?
Yeah, but the point I'm bringing, it's not to put a downfall, because Gelfin, thank you for all he did.
No doubt.
It's that because of Texas and because of Texas skaters, not because we're trying to be cocky about it, but because of this experience and what's written in this perspective in the book, Texas, we had surpassed what he was doing, is basically what they were saying. Yeah. He probably saw Phillips doing ollies and was like, well,
he does them better.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go. So I don't know. It's another, I keep trying to find these little points, and I think this is another critical Texas history point.
It's very true, because Alan's style, Alan had great style, and I'm like seeing him demo, and I'm like going, well, he's just trying to stay on, and I love not to put shade on him or anything like that, but the guy that I targeted was Jeff Phillips, but he was an age division below me, so I didn't have to skate for Jeff.
Right.
And so then it was game on, because out of the first series of the contest, and I can see where Alan's going with this thought, is because Galveston, man, we're pretty progressive in Galveston, and I'm like going, I got to put in at least 2 to 3 new tricks before I get to Austin. That's only 3 weeks away.
Right.
So between Galveston and Austin, I'd learned Miller flips.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
So then Phillips and I are the only 2 that are doing Miller flips.
Yeah. And this is pre-Phillips 66 and all that stuff, right? That was pre all that stuff.
And the problem that I had, I couldn't go big because I got like a knee syndrome, and I didn't have the strength in my legs. So I always had to kind of keep it close to the lip. So it was all about lip tricks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And in front of Alan, I did my first rock and roll board slide on that fiberglass ramp. And I'm like going, how did I pull this off?
Right.
And it was just like, he wasn't doing any of that. He may have been doing board slides and frontside ollies and stylish frontside airs, but he wasn't going into the next level of progressive tricks.
Right.
No,
And
he
I
was
think-
trying to stay on.
He was staying on.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was
demo.
in cruise mode.
But
demo
in
mode.
seeing the talent and what was going on, and you go from Jeff, which is not necessarily robotic style, but you go from Jeff to Craig, for example, and then you probably a little more of a surf style, and he's like, well, shit, these guys got it. I don't need to tell them anything, and I think that's a really cool,
That's
critical
a very
point.
high compliment. You know,
And-
I had no idea.
Yeah,
Had
so
no
I
idea.
thought that was very cool. So in that event, tell me about, okay, you're going up, you're driving up there, and then there's this other theory I talk about, and that's the surf style flow,
Right.
style power, and then you go to Dallas where it's a little more straightforward kind of power, not necessarily, I don't want to say it's not style because that's not true. Wilkes, Craig, they all have style,
Right.
but it was different from the surfy style. What did
Right.
you notice? What do you remember?
We worked harder. You know, I think that we worked harder at it. You know,
Okay.
the guys that were like Bobby Morrow, that full surf style, you know, style for miles. Cooper, Alvin Cooper, style for miles. Gibson, style for miles.
And then when we say that, is it flowy? Your back foot's maybe a little bit, your front foot's a little bit back more.
You know how you recognize a kid and they got the it factor?
Oh, yeah.
They got the it factor, you know?
We have a few Gavins that
Yeah.
have the it factor.
Yeah, and so I didn't have the it factor. I don't think that Phillips or Craig had the it factor. I think that we just had the determination that we can actually go then and learn this trick. And it's just through hard work.
That's rad. So being, we're sitting here talking to William Booger Cram, Boog. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention in the article, they spell your name Buger.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the way it was in print. Yeah, and all the thrashers that were print. By the way, okay, I'll get on the soapbox for a second.
Ooh, please do.
So I won Galveston. I won
First place.
Austin.
And this is half pipe.
This is all half pipe.
Spring series or pre-spring series.
This is spring series.
Backyard ramp series.
This is spring series.
Okay.
So one Galveston, one Austin, one Dallas, but it was a 4-way tie. Alan's
How did they break the tie?
I think that was Alan's nice way of saying these guys all freaking ripped.
Oh, okay.
You know, so there was
You
my
tied
son,
with who?
Barry McDaniel,
Okay.
Gerald Burris,
Don't know that name. Okay.
and Dana Buck.
Dana Buck. So Dana Buck from Mississippi, I think, was already in
What's up,
Texas.
Bucket?
What's up, Bucket?
Yeah, he was here. Dana, I love Dana to pieces because on our way out to Kona for Veriflex Nationals, U.S. Nationals or whatever, it's so funny because I've told Deborah the story. It's like stopped at Dana's place. It was the first place I've ever seen. First time I'd ever seen porn.
And what was the porn?
I have no idea.
You have an idea. It was very furry.
It was. I think it was like on a reel to reel. It wasn't even.
Clowns were involved.
And here we
Hey, I love you,
see,
Dana. I
and
love
here
you,
we
Dana.
see a young, the hedgehog, Ron.
Yeah. So that was my first Dana Buck encounter on our way.
Wait, the porn wasn't Dana Buck, was it?
No,
Okay,
no,
good.
no.
We don't want to start a rumor. Dana, were you a porn star? No. Okay. Dana's rad. Dana
Yeah.
Bucket, he'll be coming up for sure, mentioning. But anyway, that's rad. That is so rad stories, and up in Dallas and all that. So trying to trickle this down because we are a little bit long in time. But let's go. I know you've got some things you want to mention. Also, you mentioned the World Skates 93 to 95. Now this is going into the 90s. Before I get quick into that, 80s skate park of Houston, all that stuff was super integral to what we're going to be talking about.
We were pre-skate park of Houston.
Correct.
Okay, because we had JJ's ramp, which was the widest ramp in Texas at that point. We had a roll in, a step down, tombstones, blah, 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 blah. But we didn't have the large transition and tons of vert.
And where was this? In Galveston?
One block off of Seawall, which was all donated wood from Best Western. And
Donated meaning Liberty Wood.
Liberty Wood. Yeah, that's
Wood.
right. Yeah.
Yes.
And hey, boys, what are you barreling over there? Just yell back, a boat. That's all we said.
Oh, you're in Galveston, a boat. Okay,
building
that's
a boat.
fun.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Johnny and all the boys would come down, Ken, Troy, all the boys would come down and ride our ramp.
You get to call them boys.
Yeah.
Because they were at that time.
Yeah. Now, we kidnapped Gibson, as a matter of fact, after one of the Gulf Coast skate parks and brought him when he was all but 14 years of age or something like that. So Gibson actually rode Skyscraper the more rampage
right.
ramp.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gibson had a little taste of one of the ramps. Obviously we were pre-Cedar Hill, or was it called Cedar Crest?
Cedar Crest.
Cedar Crest.
On the East Coast.
No.
Oh.
One or two
from
exits
Houston.
away
Houston,
from
right.
Orange
Cedar
Grove.
Hill.
Cedar Hill.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where it all started.
Yeah.
For those guys.
Do you remember the Texas Twister? Dennis's
Skated
parents' park?
Texas, yeah.
You did skate.
I did skate Texas
Do you
Twister.
remember what was there besides the bowl at the front of the park? No?
Vaguely, it seemed like that there was some sort of like snake run or some type of run behind the ramp off to the left as you're
They
walking
had to
into the
bulldoze all
property.
that stuff because the only thing left
And then
was the
I
bowl.
think it emptied into the bowl.
Into
Okay.
the bowl. Yeah.
I think it emptied into the bowl.
that makes sense.
That's crazy. We haven't heard anybody skating that, but we knew about that.
Yeah,
So
we rode Twister.
the 80s has a lot of stuff. And at that time, you were also repping for several companies, right? You did that for a long time. You did a lot of
2000. After Yaga, I ran into a repping time frame.
Okay, that was later. Okay.
That was
wait.
later. That was early 2000s.
Well, if we're still in the 80s, I want to hear about Stewart Beach Skate Park because I actually got to go there
Okay.
one time.
Well, let's transition because we do have a lot and we are running long and we'll figure out how to make this happen. It's wonderful. So that's not a problem about running long, but it's a lot of stuff to talk about.
You're getting material.
But the skate park of Houston and all those years are super critical, and I guess we'll have to get back to that because you were there, you were around, but you weren't competing at that point. I don't think.
Ish.
Okay. Back in the day. But your point, okay, let's go back to the Galveston. And so the second Galveston park, which was the Stewart Beach Park, talk about that because we've both skated that.
Yeah.
All three of us have skated.
I don't remember Bob's last name, but he was the owner of the water slide. Mm-hmm. So there was a water slide at Stewart Beach and that little triangular portion of land that he would rent from the Galveston Parks Board or the city of Galveston. Mm-hmm. And so directly across the street, there was bumper boats.
Yep.
And he pitched the idea of a skate park. He'd approached me. And I somehow or another got in his conversation with it.
So you're involved in the second skate park as well.
Evolve into the skate park, into the second park. And so with all that said, what happened was that he said, can you guys build me a vert ramp? And yeah, sure, we'll build your vert ramp.
So this is the vert ramp that I have photos of that Johnny and Gene Hare and Tony Bulis and all that were doing an event or a comp. Okay, so I've skated that ramp too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was built on the back half of the property. And then they also built like a downward ramp that led into a berm and then used the backside of the pool as a second berm. And then
that was the mini snake run.
That was the mini snake run.
Yeah, okay. It's like moguls and
stuff.
It was
like moguls,
which Bob Fox and I would sneak in after it closed down and still skate that until they
That's what I did too.
Yeah, we weren't able to skate that anymore. We weren't able to skate the Keyhole Bowl at that time. I did skate it, but we used to sneak it. So that's the Snake Bowl. And then there was the 7-foot round Keyhole, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Keyhole Bowl.
Keyhole.
7 foot.
And I told him when he was setting out the transitions, and then I saw where the rebar was at. I go, brother, man, that is tight. You need to get some shims or put some fill in here to draw out this transition. And I know what I'm doing. I built skate park before in Florida, and he had built a park. I think it was like Solid something or another.
Solid Surf
in Florida. And that was his park there.
Well,
Solid Surf in Spring, Texas is different, though.
He was wrong.
He was wrong. And that was because
that pool sucked.
Oh, man, it was like...
It didn't suck for Jeff Phillips because I have seen a picture of Phillips doing,
Blender.
but he skated everything.
And
Blender.
Blender skated it awesomely, too.
Right.
So Blender...
But those guys could skate a Jersey barrier and make it look good.
That's true.
So Blender, we keep bringing up this point that Blender loved to come into Texas and he loved the Texas guys and loved it. Do you have any recollection real quick of Blender?
I remember, I mean, he was I love lip tricks. Because I didn't have the strength to go bio, and I kind of fashioned myself to the lip.
Right.
And I loved watching Blender.
Oh, everybody
As a matter of fact, when I went to Marina Del Rey, Blender was there also too. So seeing him as a young kid.
Not as an offshoot, but go check it out. Somebody reposted, I think it was Alan Gentry, reposted a classic footage from the Skate Park of Houston contest, and it shows full runs from Phillips and Neil Blender, and he does the Jolly Mamba and all that. Oh, man, go check it out.
When I found out about the Stewart Beach Skate Park, it was because they did an interview with Jeff Phillips in Transworld, and there was a little bitty photo included of him
doing the front side air.
No, carve grind.
Yeah.
And it said Galveston, Texas.
Yeah, Grant Britton was there. He shot that shot.
Oh shit! Okay,
and
shout out to Grant.
I didn't know that there was a park in Galveston, but I saw that, so I immediately started looking up.
That was our contest.
I remember that flyer really well.
I do remember that. He's doing like a method Japan.
That's Miller doing a mosquito air.
Because I love Chris Miller.
Yes.
I love Chris Miller. But what is it called? What is the contest called?
Stewart Beach Riot.
A week later, after the contest, there was a full-on Stewart Beach riot.
What? Explain.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember hearing the news story about all this.
It was like
at Stewart Beach, which is a popular community end of, I don't want to say the end of the island, but it's the end big park there on the west end or east end of the island.
Yeah, it's right there beyond University Boulevard, which is street number 1.
But at that time, it was like their version of Coney Island or something. It was the tourist area to go.
So you
do
have
the rides.
It was the family beach.
Yeah.
So you have a contest, and is this the contest I'm talking about that has Gene Hare, Tony Bulis?
Yes.
Okay, I have photos
Todd
of that.
Prince,
Todd
all
Prince.
those
I have a few photos of that. That was that contest called the riot, and then a week later, what happened in Galveston? What happened in Galveston?
And Stewart Beach was just getting out of control, and I mean, at that point in time, 86, I think
18 was still the drinking age, probably. 19 maybe.
Right around that time.
19 maybe.
85 or 86 is when it changed.
But it was also at a time of transition in music, and attitudes started kind of coming in.
Punk rock and new wave.
No, people were mad because hip hop was probably getting played.
It was hip hop.
Yeah.
And
that's right. A bunch of purple drink down on the Galveston Boulevard.
How hard your car could bump.
Yep.
And all of that, right?
Speakers thumping and yeah.
Something went sideways, and a cop friend of mine shot somebody.
Oh no! But then part of the job, or I mean,
Oh yeah. I mean, and it turned into a full-on riot down there.
Holy shit!
So
that's what I meant by the Mardi Gras stuff that I'd seen down there. I've seen Mardi Gras where you just want to get the hell away from the seawall because it's so sketchy.
Right.
You don't know what people are.
This was back in the 90s that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We when we do dig into the 80s, when we do our linear episodes that we've been doing and trying to go up, when we get into the 80s, it's an episode on 80, an episode on 81, probably several episodes on when you get into 85, 86 because of the Shut Up and Skates and all the stuff that was going on. So we probably have to revisit some of that because there's just a lot, and we're trying to. This is important, and this is really good shit, and we appreciate you. If you can't listen to it, listen to an hour at a time. But listen, this is important. Booger, rad stuff. So, just to kind of tail out what you're talking about, you get it. We'll talk about the 80s. We'll go into more of that. So super influential. You were involved and you were repping and you were at all the contests. I remember seeing you. How long have you owned that white Hummer?
Oh, I got rid of it 2 years ago.
Oh, I thought you still had the white Hummer. You had a white Hummer forever. You knew it was him. So what's World Skates 1990s? We kind of jump into because this is notes and trying to wind this down.
That was
93, 95 was what?
Yeah, World Skates. It was Bino and my effort getting like a little facility for ourselves. And then we kind of opened it up to the public. And we ran it to the point where I was just traveling too much, and it wasn't fair to Bino for me to be on the road. And we opted basically to close the doors. It was always a struggle.
Okay.
I mean, our community was so small, and the kids wanted to skate for free. So then that was our future thought and efforts. Let's get a skate park built in Galveston, which we did eventually get secured in.
Which is the
2000s.
Johnny M. Romano Memorial Skate Park.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned it before, but as a quick backstory, brief kind of, he was a kid from Galveston.
He was a kid from Houston. That his dad and I rode vert together.
Okay.
So Mike and I rode vert. So he goes back into the 80s Pipeline Skate Park.
Skateboard City, Pipeline, all that stuff.
All the above. And they eventually moved to Galveston because they inherited Grandma's house, which was down in Pirates Beach. And then soon thereafter, I discovered through them that Johnny had acquired a childhood leukemia. And so he was starting his chemo, and Make-A-Wish was just right around the corner, going back to Make-A-Wish. And I called Damien Hebert at South Shore, and I go, Damien, do you have your poster kid yet? And he said, "No, what's up?" I go, "I got the perfect kid."
Okay.
So I introduced the Romanos to Damien, and he then became their poster kid.
And he was he was a good skater.
He was a good skater. He was a ripper.
And now
10 years old.
because
Well,
of all
8 to
this,
10.
and because of all this, they
Yes.
offered him a pro board or offered some kind of. Explain that.
Real skateboard.
Jim Tebow said to Mike, "Hey, do you think if we built Johnny a board it'd make him feel a little bit better?" And Mike was going, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "Well, if we do the board, then we want to make a donation to you guys."
Make a wish.
Well, not even make a wish at that point in time. That we do something for childhood leukemia and so forth. And Mike didn't want any monies at all. Anything to go back into MD Anderson with cancer research, or eventually to complement Make-A-Wish. I think that's where Damien came in. So they made him the poster child. It was part of Real's Actions Realized program, and they did a first series board. And it then evolved. And then eventually, I think Jeff Taylor, which was involved with audio skate shoes.
Yes,
at that point.
Yeah, and he's now got his own thing going on. But yes, Jeff Taylor. Jeff
Taylor and all the boys there, they did a shoe. And then Jim eventually launched a very one-off Spitfire wheel.
Oh, I did not know that.
And there was also a Thunder truck.
Yep.
So there was the whole program. And then eventually Jamie Thomas with Fallen did a shoe and a shirt. And there was like this whole effort around Johnny in many, many different ways.
Before passed. Yes.
And so before the skate park was finished, we all thought it would be best that Johnny ride the park first.
Yeah. Sure.
And so that's where you see all these photos, of which you can go to Texas Monthly. There was an article in Texas Monthly, and it talks about the entire story.
I read part of that article previous to this.
Very good. And that kind of gave you some insight as to what he was enduring. And he always acted like a pro. 10 years old, and it was like talking to an adult. And with all that said, he was like, if they're going to give me a pro model, I got to skate like a pro.
Right.
And he did.
Yeah.
He did. And he carried himself like a pro. And, eventually, he succumbed to his leukemia. But he had like a lot of visits. I think Tony visited him in the hospital, and I think Kevin Staub.
I think Kevin came out.
It was during like Huck Jam or something like that when
they had to stop.
They had to stop.
Yeah, they were
gigantic skate park tour.
Yeah.
Maybe it was right around it.
Yeah, when they had the bus. And
Is that right?
I think that's right, because the Huck Jam was the thing where they were always in arenas, and the giant skate park tour was in the bus where they were going city to city.
So gigantic skate park tour was early 2000s, where I think it was actually Huck Jam.
It could be
in that time frame.
But yeah,
because he passed in 09.
09, I want to say. Yeah, because the park got built in 08.
Yeah. So that's the Johnny story. And then we went to the city and we said we want the park renamed after him.
And that's the skate park that still remains there on the Seawall Boulevard. At Seawall at what?
27th between Q and Q and a half.
Bob Fox is probably rolling around there right now.
Yeah, he's getting his mornings in.
I recall that I went while it was getting built, and we saw the way they were framing up the cradle and that thing, and it was all like number 6 rebar. It was like super heavy duty. And, I had already built the cradle at the Round Rock Park that was all number 3 and number 4. I just thought it was kind of overkill using that heavy of rebar. And I think maybe the city, the specs, the engineering specs had required it for at least the verticals in that. The cross could have been 4s, but I remember thinking it was overkill. But that park got an acid test of its durability immediately, because it got built in the summer of 08, and 2 months after it got built, it got hit by Hurricane Ike. And it was completely full of water for like 3 weeks.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because we didn't have any
Came
power.
through like a champ. That thing was built solid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's That's awesome. That's awesome. So, going to try to wind this down here. We've been talking for almost 3 hours, and it's definitely been worth it. Boog, we've got more we could definitely go into. But as we try to taper this down, you mentioned the rabbit hole. Now, we mentioned Vicky Vickers, so we got the Vicky Vickers in. Did we get the Dino Mueller in? Mueller.
Dino Mueller.
What was that rabbit hole?
Dino is from Houston, from what I understand. I don't know if he grew up in Houston or if it was a segue for
I don't
him
know the
to
name.
be
Sorry.
We're going to have to go down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
And again, is he Texan or is he not a Texan? Because then he was on cover of Skateboarder. And then he also had a pro model, talking about pro models.
Oh, this is the one that you mentioned. Oh, yes. Okay. The pro model for Veriflex.
Surf.
No, Val Surf.
Val Surf.
And he was from
Houston, from what I understand.
And this would have been pro pre-80.
That would have been at least, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to circle these so that we can pull
homework.
that up.
That's homework.
Stuart Singer, we already know about that, and I've actually got somebody sent me a phone number recently, and I haven't reached out, but I'm going to reach out and try to make that. We're going to try to do all this in person, and so we haven't gotten up to Dallas yet and can't get some of those guys to get down here. Jeff Bauer. Brian Abel.
Yeah.
Another rabbit hole. Did we mention him earlier?
We did. He's the one that would or could have been first pro.
Okay.
And he was riding for Hobie.
Okay. Great. And then we briefly mentioned this. I'm just going to mention because you have it on here. Texas Skateboard Hall of Fame. Why did you write that rabbit hole down? Because it's time?
It's time. And obviously, Todd and all the guys at Skateboarding Hall of Fame in Southern California, they're encompassing the bigger aspect of it. But I've also
have you talked to them, breached this subject?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of trying to spearhead something.
The same thing we're trying to do, get Texas more in the spotlight.
Or an individual.
An individual. Okay. Do you want to breach on that or no?
Yeah, sure.
No? Okay.
Sure.
What do you mean, an individual?
Well, obviously.
And you're referring to starting a Texas Skateboard Hall of Fame or some kind of branch of the Skateboard Hall of Fame to get Texas names in there, something of that nature.
Texas names.
Okay.
Yeah. So I reached out to Todd and I said, hey, what's it take to get someone introduced or entertained? And there's evidently the panel. And he sent me the specs on it.
Which are almost all California dudes, probably. Maybe. Industry.
They're in the beginning of why we need to get over this hurdle.
Okay.
So there are these 25 individuals that kind of basically throw names into the hat, and then eventually it'll get kind of like funneled in, and these are the ones that are inductees.
Global skateboard ranking.
Okay. Yeah. So, fortunately, we've had, we all thought that Jeff Phillips was the first, but really Vicky Vickers is the first.
Okay. When was she inducted? We don't know.
17.
Okay.
And then we had Jeff in, and then we have Gibson in.
So three Hall of Famers, only three.
Only three from Texas.
Yeah. Okay.
So I said,
not Singer.
No, not
Which
Singer.
is also crazy. Well, I'm just saying, he keeps coming up a lot.
Again, I think it's a matter of what you brought to the table.
Or how you finished. I mean, in Johnny, the 80s and the whole Shut Up and Skates and yeah.
So,
Zorlak.
So they opened the Cornucopia and they introduced and or inducted Bruce Walker. Okay. So we all know what his contributions are from Florida. Florida's got a surfing Hall of Fame.
They do. Now we have a surfing Hall of Fame or in Galveston, right?
It's moving from Corpus to Galveston.
Okay.
So, which we will have skateboarding representation there.
Okay.
Nice. Okay. So, with all that said, I said, I'm a steward for Jeff Newton's name.
Yeah.
It's a shock that it's not.
And it's not. So if Walker got in, your board of 25 need to introduce Jeff's name.
And this is part of how is it? It's almost an insult. And I don't know how Jeff would take this. And I know he listens because he's been posting. Yeah. I've been deep in touch with him, but it's almost an insult because when you talk about the Thrasher and all those things in the early years, he was everywhere, but he wasn't on the covers of the magazines or whatever, but
he was shooting the photos.
Yeah.
Right. And he was also
writing
right. But what I'm saying is that they featured the dudes that were doing it,
Right.
But he was so integral. So
Sure.
yes, absolutely. I'm shocked that he's not already mentioned.
So we were thinking, and listen up, all you 25. You all have to really take into consideration what Jeff did here and why we got put on the map, or who our godfather is, because Jeff is the godfather.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So, it takes a couple individuals, and I think that we have friends on that board, and that could take and introduce the name. So we just have to be stewards and encourage them to think outside of their box.
I know it's a process, but it's kind of like when you have to go to the city and you've got to like convince them of something that's obvious need. And it's funny that we have to win shake babies and win friends to get influences to be like Jeff Newton, which every one of those 25, thank you for what you do, 25 people, but you know who he is and what he's done to skateboarding.
Well, I think that there's one or two guys that are out there that are clearly versed in. It's an obvious individual that is in front of us that is also obvious to them, but for some reason or another, because of the pecking order, and I think the door just got opened with Walker.
Okay.
So I think the time is now starting to kind of like, okay, now you're on the clock.
Yeah.
But is this a point that you're making of not only pushing the 25 to get more Texas people justifiably in the Skateboard Hall of Fame, but is this also a point of, like Texas always does, if you don't do it for us, we're going to do it for our fucking self. We're going to do it for ourselves. And we have enough gumption and enough proof.
That's it.
Right.
Because my first vote in, Newton.
Yeah.
Straight up.
There's not even a doubt.
No, there's no doubt. Because without Newton, or without, which I even kind of fall back on, shop owners, without creating this community, then we don't have a vehicle.
Right.
It's just like,
we don't have the Spring Series. We don't have Zorlek. We don't have the vehicle for the Texas skaters to get noticed.
And not in the same ilk, but just like Dennis Epinet. There's no way you can't have Dennis Epinet as this figure that did something
another guy.
Yeah, but I mean, we will be talking, we mentioned it a lot, but no, obviously Jeff Newton and what Jeff Newton's done, and the fact that
I think that we can parallel a lot of what they've done and refine, because we know what not to do, maybe at this point. But if we don't, then what's going to happen? It's going to be forgotten, because we're coming into that period of time that, hey, we're on the clock now. We're QTR, right?
That's pretty much why we're doing this podcast, because we
Quality time remaining.
We want to get these stories and these skaters and these people and these events on the map, in recording, on paper, for lack of a better term, before we get too far along and the next generation doesn't give a shit. But you've got people like Rainey, who's 31, and he loves that. And I know there's a lot of people that love this history and
He'll
where
be
it
the
came
one
from.
that could carry the torch.
Well, and it needs to happen. And so Texas Skateboarding Hall of Fame, if you guys have something to say about it, you want to shoot us an email. I think you and I and Carjack are going to be talking about this because we definitely would like to be involved in making something like that happen. And it goes right along with some of the other critical things that are already happening in Texas, not just this podcast, which hopefully we've spurred some things. And I've mentioned about Danny Hollenbeck pulling out all of his Jeff Phillips footage to start his documentary. And I had a really quick, brief mention with Rainey. And Rainey's like, if you ever do a Texas documentary, will you sign on Rye? Yes. Mm-hmm. So these conversations are things that are happening that haven't been happening since the attempted history documentary. And that's important. So that's a big thing.
Of which someone needs to give back my film.
Ooh, okay. So real
Straight
quick
up,
on that, do you know who has your film? Because do you know the story about what happened? Do you know any detail about why there was a disconnect more than what we know?
It was about money.
Do you know?
Boiled down to it.
Can we stir some feathers?
I'm going to stir a feather.
Can you bring a name or two up?
There was a group in Dallas called the Black Box or the Box.
That does sound familiar. Okay.
And those were the guys that, if you remember, I think they were out filming at skate park of Austin in the parking lot.
Yes, and they were also filming us at Doug's place when it
Right.
was early build because they interviewed me, Chris Gates, Poindexter, a bunch of people.
So then there became and in this part I will not name names because I don't have this absolutely confirmed, but there were individuals that thought that their thought was bigger or better than theirs, and then butting of the heads.
And I think part of that was a butting of the heads with Jeff Newton, not on the negative, that like Jeff Newton knew what was going on, and I think they didn't, I don't know.
I think some people got it and some people didn't get it.
Okay.
So that's what I understand. So
Wow.
I'm going to call out Black Box, whoever those guys were, because we want our films back.
We understand that all those interviews and all that footage is around, but they've taken hold of it. We don't know where it is. We're trying to get it. We don't want to start fights. We're not going to meet in an alley, but we do want that footage back because it's historic. Now, we can talk about rights. We can talk about ownership and all that stuff. It doesn't, to me, to us, I don't know if it matters as much as having it out there.
Yeah.
The interviews and all that stuff. So that's rad shit.
Well, we got people that are upset because that was their property.
Right. Exactly.
And there was a number of individuals that entrusted me, into that, which I apologized and apologized and apologized. And it's sort of like, hey, that's our stuff, man.
So when you have footage, what footage are you referring to that you don't have? And when you say you don't have rights to it, you don't have copies of it.
No, this is all the original Super 8s. This is Super 8 film that we shot. And it could be
earlier than the documentary that you gave them.
Way earlier.
So
than
you
the
have
documentary.
archived footage that you can't get back from them.
Yes. Yeah.
Come
It's
on,
it's like-
people!
it's on those
Don't do
reels.
that to
Yeah, yeah.
You know what
skateboarding.
I'm talking
Don't
about?
do that.
And
Yeah,
I mean, that
so
means these guys have had it for over 10 years now, and they haven't done anything with it.
Nothing. And they're going to hold on. Don't. Come on, guys. Let's talk. If somebody knows who these people are, get them in and let's talk the conversation. Let's not be assholes because it's about the
I'll tell you
history.
what, once this is turned off, I'll mention 3 names.
Okay. We'll know some scoop. You guys won't. All right. Well, Boog, before we do finally tie this into a 3-hour tour, you have this whole list and you have a couple of other artifacts that you brought.
Yeah.
There's some things that we haven't touched on that you want to mention since and I'm sorry we don't have as much time. But I mean,
I know that
you brought this board back here.
Yeah.
That was a tribute board or a second board from.
That would have been the second board that I would have had that was prototyped, and then we had a graphic created for it that Tim Litzman did. And instead of letting some graphic just kind of go by the wayside, for the course of 40 years, and it was just sandbagged, that we modernized it. There was the original graphic.
Oh, that's right. So it's like an upside down igloo.
Yeah.
Basically.
Basically, it's a
Making a hole with a channel.
It's like a keyhole.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Tim was creative enough to kind of come up with it. And we made T-shirts. We cut the prototype. It should have gone to printing at that point, and then we never printed it. But it kind of resembled a little bit of a square-nosed devilfish.
Oh, nice.
That's exact. I really like the hammerhead devilfish, that general template. And so at least it's in a square nose here.
So he's got us a board here, care of him and Ohana Surf Shop or Surf Shop. You don't say skate shop, but it is a skate shop.
Ohana Surf and Skate.
Surf and Skate. All right. So and I know you brought a couple of thrashers. You brought a couple of other things. Is there something we haven't touched on that? John's going to edit this into like a 15-minute clip. So
yeah. So, I mean, what was over there is just if you had not seen like the earlier rags of Thrasher.
Okay.
So that's, in essence, what I pulled, what I thought was important for the spring series of skateboarding.
Yes.
Which
is huge. We're going to be digging deep into that and referencing some of the things that you mentioned. And I can't believe you won that Austin contest too. That's so rad. I think I remember seeing your name in it because the photo of the Zorlak bus and the Palmer Auditorium and all that stuff.
The Brewski man skating down the sidewalk.
I don't know that one, but
I'll
okay.
show you.
That's super rad. And was there anything else that you had brought that was artifact-wise that you wanted to bring up or something?
Skateboarder that had Northeast Skate Slopes.
Okay.
The story of which they wrote upon that event concluding and all the craziness that ensued thereafter. And I think that's pretty much about it.
Did you get into Thrasher? Did you get any photos? Did you ever get anything other than maybe some of the early stuff?
I don't know why, but there is a Galveston photo of Bobby Morrow.
Okay.
That Brad Bowman took.
Okay.
And Mike Fulmer and Brad Bowman stopped in Galveston on their way through, and that's one of the articles that's inside there. And thanks to Brad Bowman, because he was my hookup. That's how I got involved with, and Andrew got involved with Sims.
Right. Man.
Yeah.
It's such great history. It's really hard to wind this down because we really could keep talking, but we don't want to do the 4 hours. We're already at 3 hours and some change, which Carjack's probably going bonkers at this point, but that's okay. This is exactly why we're doing this, and there's not a dull moment in anything that we've talked about at this point. We appreciate you very much. You are, as long as I've known you and we've been friends, I miss the times that I didn't spend as much having some longer conversations with you, and I'm glad that we're doing that now, and we're going to have quite a few more of these. But your importance to the Texas scene and to what's going on and the history that you bring is not without the mention of how much respect and how much we should respect you for that. So we appreciate that very much. And
it's likewise. I'm just glad that you guys are here telling the story. Because I think that's what was intended 20 plus years ago with that documentary.
Right.
And that would have been captured and done. But now it's just sort of like, okay, it's more story there.
Right.
Right. We all bring something to the table. We all are valuable in some sort of frame or fashion. We just have to tap into what that value is.
Yeah.
And then, okay, let's bring it to the top.
And that's the whole spotlight and the whole purpose of this and the things that we're talking about and the potential Texas Hall of Fame or getting Newton into the Skateboard Hall of Fame or this museum thing that Tally and I have been working on and all the things that are happening in the state. We want to bring it to the forefront to, again, not say that we are better than California or Florida, but we were doing it right there with them at that time frame, and we were doing it DIY, and we were inventing and evolving the sport in our own way, and it was just mirrored, and it proofs in the pudding when Alan Gelfand came in and saw Booger with Phillips and Wilkes and all those guys, and he's like, Boog, I'm out. You guys are ripping. That's it. I'm done. I'm good.
All because of Alan.
Something good. So, all right. Well, I guess we have to wind this down. We really do. We appreciate everything that's going on. As always, as we tail this in, what you got for us, Carjack?
Hey, Chip, how many skateboarders does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know, Carjack. How many skateboarders does it take to change a light bulb?
For today, we're going to say 10, and it doesn't matter how many actually change it. All 10 of them are going to argue about who did it first.
That's exactly right. Well, for Kerry Jackson and myself, Chip Queso, and especially our illustrious guest, William Booger Cram, go find him, go like him, blow up his Instagrams or his Facebooks or whatever he's doing.
And listen to Kiss.
Listen to Kiss. He's going to see Kiss tomorrow night. That's how he got in this town. I forgot to mention he's also a huge Kiss fan, which there's a guy from Austin, I can get you his name, that is traveling around doing a backstory documentary on Kiss, and he's a skater from Austin. I'll get you his name, see if we can connect you to get some of that footage. So thank you guys for joining in. Appreciate you listening to the history of Texas through Booger's eyes as opposed to Booger's nose and all that good stuff. We are super stoked to bring this to you, and we hope that we discover a whole lot more. So with that being said, go out and grind a curb, skate a pool. What'd you say? Do some inverts, damn it. Something like that.
And hook 'em horns.
And we're still doing it DIY style, y'all. Even though we're on YouTube. This is the phone, and this is music. Thank you. We won't shut up and skate.
Future's up to you. The future's up to you. The future's up to you. The future's up to you.